Hello, everyone. Welcome to an extra late episode of the Whitepill. Happy April Fools, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As always, I have my co-host, Mr. Fireside Talks. Thanks for making the time.
Hello, always a pleasure.
Yes, we are back with the riveting conclusion of the Freedom Convoy series, which has been weeks in the making. Apologies for all the delays, but we are here to finally end off what is it, our third or fourth episode in the series? I think it's
trilogy. The first one was kind of like our test dive, right, into the topic until we realized we just really had to break this down.
That's right. Yeah. So today we're going to be ending off. Technically, what? Sorry.
Technically 4.
Yeah, technically 4. And yeah, we'll be finishing it off today by talking about what happened towards the end of the convoy, how it was squashed, and the legal proceedings that followed. But before we get into that, as always, if you want to support the show, just like, comment, subscribe. That is easily the best way that you could support the efforts for the Whitepill project. Otherwise, if you want to financially support what we do here, you're more than welcome to send some crypto to the donation link that I have set up there. Still working on getting a fiat currency payment system set up, so stay tuned for that. Besides that, you can also send us a tip if you're watching this on Rumble. Through, I believe it's the Rumble wallet you have to do that through. And then there's also a referral link to both Rumble and Proton in the description of every episode. You can just sign up there if you like using either Proton or Rumble. And besides that, let me just double check. Yeah, I think that should be it. Yeah, without further... right. The notes for this episode will be posted also in the description of the episode, and because we like to provide the sources for just about everything we say here, so that'll also be included in the description. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the show. So we're just going to start by discussing the government justifications for the crackdown in the first place, their justifications for the Emergencies Act, and part of the claims that were being made at the time was that the convoy, it was not so that they couldn't make the claim that the convoy was violent, because it was not. In fact, the amount of violent acts for the city of Ottawa, specifically in the regions where people were staying, had actually gone down. And the evidence of this can be seen in this Blacklock's Report article published in 2022, which says the Freedom Convoy blockade at Parliament yesterday completed its 6th day, and amid MPs' claims lawless truckers were attacking passerbys on the streets of on the streets of Ottawa. Preliminary data shows police-reported street crime actually fell since the blockade began. Quote, "We are here out of love for our families, our communities, and our nation." Blockade organizer Tamara Litch of Calgary told reporters. Litch said protesters opposed to vaccine mandates were average, peace-loving, and law-abiding citizens from all walks of life, and disputed claims the blockade was lawless. Quote, "No one from the federal, provincial, or municipal government has spoken directly with us," said Litch. "Instead, they are using you, the media, to portray us as racist, misogynists, and even terrorists." And this is, like, verifiably true, as you guys saw in the footage that we had in the last episode, of actual footage on the ground that Mr. Fireside had taken while he was there. And if you just want to get a refresher, I'd recommend listening to that episode, because yes, this was exactly as Tamara Litch said, where people were friendly toward one another. They were openly hugging each other, and in a lot of cases crying, because they just needed an outlet for what they had been going through during COVID. I'm sure you could speak to that more.
Yeah, no, you nailed it on the head there. It's one of those things that even now I still get emotional about, just having that ability to express yourself, be in the presence of like-minded individuals, but also just having that sense of community. Even if it wasn't about, say, defying the orders about not wearing the masks and not physical distancing and so on. It was just that sense of community, that bliss that you were no longer sitting in your house alone for the last 2 years, and you're the crazy one, you know, well, the government is, well, like Tamara said, in using the media to just slander you and make you feel absolutely inferior. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was a fantastic time. I couldn't say that enough in the last episode. I remember.
Yeah, and there's another part of the article here where it says Liberal MP Yassir Naqvi, which I mean, you know what? I'm gonna look that up. Are they even born in Canada? Because half these fucking people that are sitting in our government are not even born here. Born and raised in Karachi, Pakistan, and immigrated to Canada. Rule of thumb: if you're not born in Canada, you should not be able to hold public office. I don't care if it's municipal, provincial, or federal. You do not have the same vested interest as the people that are actually born on this land. So this guy really should not be as a member of parliament. But he said that the truckers were, quote, rude, aggressive, and intimidating in the local stores, and that, quote, women and staff were scared to go out at a local shelter, and that firecrackers had been hurled at people wearing masks who were simply passing by. Which, okay, for firecrackers being tossed at people, was there even like a complaint? Is there anything that he's actually citing here? Doesn't look like
That's
it.
the
Just
first
seems
time
like,
I've heard that.
yeah, it just seems like he's fucking mouthing off. And another MP, a New Democrat MP, Charlie Angus, claimed that truckers had, quote, harassed and threatened women on the streets of Ottawa. Quote, I've received 3 messages from young women around Gloucester and Metcalfe streets talking about the threats of rape that they are facing because of the lawlessness and lack of police to protect residents in Centretown, Ottawa from this protest. Okay, not sure who this is supposed to be like specifically targeting. Threats of rape. I like, what the fuck? No, there's no footage. Not only is there no footage, there was no criminal case. There was nothing. There's no actual evidence that this was true. This guy's literally just getting up in front of parliament and fucking spewing his bullshit.
Again, this is the first time I've heard about any of this. Like, and any of the individuals at the convoy would tell you, like, nobody stands by these individuals if this actually, in fact, did happen.
Well, not just that, but like if you read further into the article, it says the district saw 31 police calls for robbery, assault, drug trafficking, public drunkenness, stolen vehicles, store break-ins, and other crimes in the week prior to the protest. There were 3 reports of street crimes since the protest began for mischief, robbery, and auto theft. Police yesterday say data was incomplete. Quote, there have been no riots, injuries, or deaths. Police Chief Peter Stoley testified Wednesday at the Municipal Police Services Board. Quote, we are arresting, charging, and investigating bad actors. All charges against truckers to date involved routine traffic violations or breach of a local noise bylaw for horn honking. The police have been doing their job since day one, said Bloc Québécois MP Alain Terrain. It is the federal government that is hiding. From day one, the Prime Minister has been throwing fuel on the fire, and then he goes and hides behind the police, which is, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, really.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Give
and
it to
then,
us straight, why don't you?
so they make this claim that the Freedom Convoy is exceptionally violent or has the potential for violence, and the CBC decided to inflate that claim by making the claim that it was potentially funded by Russian state actors. The evidence that they used for this was that at the time, Canada was supporting Ukraine's defense against Russia in their not yet war, but something that would eventually go into the Ukraine conflict that we see now. And this is the incident where the CBC correspondent, I mean, look, she said it better than I could, so let's just give her a listen here.
I do ask that because.
Oh, hold on. Let me make sure I have the browser audio.
As given
There we go.
Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
Right. Notice she's not saying that I have credible proof that the RCMP has supplied or that CSIS has supplied or that any body of government has supplied. She's saying that there is potential reason for concern. Like, there's so many qualifiers that she's trying to add there that are like, oh, maybe potentially somehow like this could happen. Let's just give that a
Yeah,
listen again.
and you're right, is that there was no precedent for this at all. Like there wasn't even a conspiracy theory that I was aware of, at least, that there was Russian involvement in the convoy at all. This is the clip that took us all by surprise when it came out, when it started circulating. We're like, this came out of left field. It's unreal. And this happened, I think, late January. This clip is from. So this was before the convoy even really got downtown.
Yeah, January 28th. Yeah. Yeah, this is while they're still amassing and still driving over there. But let's just listen to her ridiculous bullshit once again.
As given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
Well, again, I'm going to defer to our partners in the public safety, the trained officials and experts in that area. What I can tell you is that we do have the police resources on site right now who are watching the conduct of this convoy very carefully and who are providing direction and guidance to residents to ensure that there is a peaceful protest, but at the same time, providing direction and guidance to residents. And obviously, it's important that Parliament continue to function. It's important that we.
Right, he's not touching on the Russia topic at all. Hasn't said anything about it. He's like, I'm not even fucking going there.
No, but again, you noticed how he's already saying like, oh, we're trying to educate people into ensuring this is a peaceful protest. The convoy hasn't even shown up to Ottawa yet, and they're already claiming violence. And never touches the Russian thing, and that subject never really got even touched ever again. And we've already mentioned the news anchor's body language there, and in making that statement, it's like she's looking around all over the room. She's stuttering over her own words. Even she can't believe what's coming out of her mouth.
Yeah, I don't know if like an editor or a producer or somebody in her ear just decided that would be a good line of questioning to pursue, making this claim out of fucking thin air, literally like just making it up as she went along. But of course, naturally, somebody complained to the CBC regarding this and said, hey, what the fuck? You can't just make that claim. You can't just make a baseless claim like that or say, oh, we're just asking questions and then label the entire protest as somehow Russia affiliated or Russia funded. Mm. And there's a transcript here that they found in the Ombudsman's investigation, which came months after the actual convoy. This came like months after the actual incident, so this took a bit of time for it to actually catch up. And the management response was, let me see here. Oh no, this is just the transcript. It was a loaded question specifically aimed at Russia when most foreign donations aren't from that country. The journalist's situation around questioning that funding, even if it were revised as outlined by Chris, is still problematic for the following reasons. No shit. It listed the US, UK, and Poland as among a few others. Any citation to outside donations has to be put into context when asking questions about security. Otherwise, it makes listeners, watchers, readers think that the foreign donations are mostly from hostile nations. The important thing here, right, when they did this review and they actually found that the CBC had violated their journalistic integrity by doing this, there was no correction by the CBC. It's not as if they go out and they say, oh, hey, sorry, we fucked up. We need to take this time now to announce that not only did we fuck up, but we are now taking steps to ensure that this doesn't happen again. There was none of that. Mm-hmm. None of it. Right. These ombudsman corrections, what they do is they get released on their website, but unless somebody actually makes a stink about it or unless somebody actually talks about it, this gets no airtime. And no one, like CTV News, Global News, they're not covering this. None of them are actually going to discuss this. And obviously CBC isn't going to shoot themselves in the foot by discussing this. So effectively what happens is the CBC gets to make whatever claims it wants. And when it gets to be, when it gets found out that their claims are false, or they were trying to ask a leading question or try to coerce someone to say something that actually wasn't true, they just get a correction on the website, but no actual admission of guilt, no apology,
no
nothing.
Public correction, right? is like you're correcting yourself and you're putting it down in the fine print in the bowels of your friggin' website, but you haven't corrected the statement in the public eye. You've already like what they said. You've already, by making those accusations, you've already planted that seed of thought. That train is ready to go, and now you back it out, but in a silent whisper in the back. It's like no, absolutely not. I remember seeing old news broadcasts where the anchors would openly say, "Oh, look, we have to, go back on what we said," and so on. And even nowadays, it's like, yeah, you'll see that once in a while, but it'll be like, "Oh, we apologize. The penguin we had on yesterday was 12, not 15. Oh, our bad." It's like, no, that's not the stuff that you need to let the public know you messed up on.
Yeah, and then once again, like just the absolute uselessness of the CBC ombudsman, because what they end up doing is they say, "Oh, my advice to them in the wake of this incident is to pay more attention to the mission listed in the JSP to be aware of the impact of their work. The more contentious the story, and heaven knows the convoy was contentious, the more likely it is that people will perceive the CBC's coverage through their own partisan or ideological lens. So producers should prepare their programs with that in mind." If they don't already, if they don't already operate from that principle, then what the fuck is the point of having a national broadcaster? What is the point of being a news organization if you don't already operate from that principle? Right. And once again, like all these questions and everything, like it's in a way it's pointless because obviously they know this. The CBC is aware of this. They know of their own bias. They know of their own coverage and what kind of questions they ask and what response they will get from the public. They are aware of this. They just don't care. They don't care. And that's the fucking problem. And even when they get called out, great. Oh, cool. We have the ombudsman making an announcement. Great. Okay. Are you going to now undo the damage done by the statement? Are you going to somehow atone for that? No? Okay. So what the fuck are we doing here? And then also during the recent trial of the CBC, the gentleman here, Travis Donraj, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, he also found that in testimony, some of the anchors at CBC were speaking disparagingly about some of the people involved in the convoy, Tamara Litch being one of them. Let's just listen to this here.
When it came to Mr. Cochran, this is during the convoy, for example. We were talking about Tamara Litch, who was an individual who was involved in the convoy. We were doing a story around that. And off-the-hand remarks can be made at times. And I said, I think that she has a couple of different last names. People who live in trailers usually do. Okay, off-color remark. But if this is a pattern, right? You have to, if your staff on your own show are raising this, if people are leaving the program, you have to look a little bit deeper into it. As opposed to pulling me off the air for saying it's unfortunate the president didn't come on the show.
I mean, that just kind of illustrates the point freely because, like, yeah, okay, that's not an editorial comment. He's not actually talking on air. But if this is how you're behaving off air, if this is the kind of contempt that you have for these people, that you think the Freedom Convoy was just a bunch of white trash, trailer trash truckers that came into Ottawa and caused all this disruption, it's like, okay, but that's gonna color your commentary. It's gonna affect your bias if this is what you think deep down. And this is just one of the comments that we know of. This is just what we have on the record from what this guy remembers from an offhand conversation. Who knows?
Yeah, we can't read minds, right?
Yeah, like who knows what else these people are actually thinking or what else they're considering regarding the coverage of the stories that they cover. And then just to get a quick compilation of what the news media really thought about the convoy, right, without reading their minds, let's see a quick compilation here. And this is a mix of American and Canadian media here.
A threat to democracy.
This city is under siege. They are now calling it an occupation.
Alarming situation there in Ottawa.
The police chief is calling
Under siege. That's a common statement that I heard a lot. Then which, well, siege. Like, guys, come on. Like, let's be real. Siege.
Well, the whole thing about language it has been a big thing about the convoy anyway. I was even thinking earlier about how they still call it the so-called, and in quotations, Freedom Convoy, but then on the other hand, they'll just openly call it an occupation. And it's like, okay,
They put it in quotes. They put the quotes as if it's like it's kind of freedom, but not really.
No, they're even failing to almost acknowledge it as a protest in and of itself. They don't want to call it a protest because if they do, they say, "Oh, well, you squandered a protest." It's like, no. We negated an occupation,
A siege.
yeah, a siege. And then that also we'll touch on this later, but that also gives them the validation to talk about shutting down Wellington.
Well, also a siege.
We were
an
under
actual
siege.
Well, an actual siege on Parliament would have been this: is if they had parked their vehicles across every single exit and entry point, if they had actually barred entry and exit to any members of Parliament or anybody that was in the buildings at the time, and either stationed guards or put people around, like that's an actual siege. That's when they are like actually inhibiting the freedom of movement for all these people. But they weren't.
Like I basically locked you down in your homes.
Exactly.
Like you can't go out the front door.
Yeah. Like that's an actual siege. You know, it's one thing to say, oh, they shut down a street, they shut down this street, they shut down that street. It's a whole other thing to say that they were laying Parliament under siege. That if we are taking that definition literally, that means that people were not able to go in and out of the buildings, and they had armed guards to make sure that that was a possibility, which could not have been further from the truth. But let's just give this a listen.
Calling it a nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
This is kind of our insurrection by air horn moment. I think it's part of the globalization of Trumpism.
Canadians know where I stand.
There hasn't been as much violence as some had perhaps projected, but that does not necessarily mean that it has been peaceful.
Reports of severe vandalism and criminal behavior.
Streets are clogged.
Severe vandalism, not just regular vandalism.
Yeah,
severe.
Oh, you mean us putting the American, Jesus Christ, the Canadian flag and the hockey stick on Terry Fox?
Yeah, severe vandalism.
Vandalism, right? Because we defamated his not defamated. What's
desecrated.
The word? Desecrated. Thank you. We desecrated his statue. Yeah. Okay.
Severe vandalism.
The honking is incessant and deafening.
This pandemic has sucked for all Canadians.
Residents that I have spoken to who say they feel terrorized, intimidated. Residents say they feel like hostages. Residents in that area say that they are being held hostage, that this freedom convoy, as they call it, has essentially imposed a lockdown on them.
Some protesters harassed a soup kitchen.
These anti-vaxxers actually took food from the mouths of the homeless.
Hungry, yeah.
Because they're so put upon.
There have not been any.
Also, yes, that story went around in the early days of the convoy. There was zero evidence regarding like a police investigation in this at all, which is strange because you would think that like at a food bank or at the nearby locations, they would have had security camera footage. There would have been some kind of an investigation. They would have called the police. Like something would have happened if these people were actively stealing food from the convoy, which like the only truth that has gone on about this is that apparently from what I've heard, it wasn't even people that were associated with the convoy. It was just grifters, people that were just trying to, I don't know, get some fucking food because they were living on the street or what have you. But there was no actual police investigation or any follow-up regarding this. So this claim was, once again, baseless claim that is made with no evidence, no police investigations, nothing of actual concrete proof that members of the convoy were doing this. It was just a story that somebody published on social media, which, I mean, look, that just sounds like hearsay.
Yeah, but even if it did happen, the thing is, it's very easy to throw around a name, right? I can walk into a bank and say, oh, I'm with so-and-so a group, give me all your money. And when I leave, the people left will say, oh, he was with so-and-so group, he said so.
And I also have a hard time believing that because the Freedom Convoy, they came stacked, they came supplied. We showed evidence of this in the previous episode, if you want to go check it out, but we showed footage of people actually setting up tents and barbecues and actual like feeding stations where people could go and get actual food. So the convoy was in effect feeding itself. They weren't preying upon the food banks in Ottawa. They were actually setting up their own infrastructure so that they could feed each other. I mean, I'm sure you'll see in this footage of people setting up fucking barbecues on their own. So I'm not sure where that claim comes from.
By locals more now than they were during the convoy.
Exactly.
Violent outbursts. However, horns have been honking for 12 to 21 hours a night.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
Many of them are holding Confederate flags.
I've heard there
Many. The handful of people.
When I was down there.
I saw photographs of it, so like there's definitely there is truth to that claim, but this wasn't like when they say many, you're implying many. There was a handful of these flags, and the majority of the people that were there, they're not like the Confederacy has nothing to do with this. This is all about Canada. So all right, go off media.
The guy there with the Trump flag. Like again, that doesn't mean anything because we're not American.
Yep.
supporters in the crowd.
We've seen swastikas.
I'm sorry, hold on. Let me rewind that.
In the crowd. I've heard there's QAnon supporters in the crowd.
We've seen swastikas.
She heard that there's QAnon supporters in the crowd. Okay.
We've seen the Confederate flag. We've seen flags with Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, in a noose. Lots of Donald Trump flags as well. People chanting, "Let's go, Brandon."
It is actually one of the rare times in history you're going to see swastikas and yellow stars at the.
Okay. Saying
I love how they
that,
do that with the clip in the back. Yeah.
I was literally just gonna say him saying that while there's literally a fucking bouncy castle. There's literally a bouncy castle.
And over, not a single swastika or armband or nothing.
Well, you notice also like zero footage of actual fights breaking out. Like this is a compilation of the media's coverage on it and how they slandered the convoy, but like no actual footage of fights breaking out. The closest thing is that one guy that was like wearing that runner's outfit on, well, I think it was on Bank Street, where he's like just yelling at the top of his lungs, like to these to the truckers. It was in initial days when they were still allowed to honk. But once again, no actual footage of violence. If there was this case to be made that the Freedom Convoy was going to be violent, wouldn't we see some footage? And also at the beginning of this clip, the journalist, she mentioned that it's not as violent as some people were expecting, but there was still the potential for it. Like, okay, all right.
But I think you nailed it with that kind of like what the convoy was. It was the place of peace and love, is what it was. Like I would compare it to like this was my Woodstock. You know, nobody was there to fight with each other. When you showed up here, you were showing up with an expectation of patience and understanding. I couldn't fathom a fight breaking out amongst the protesters or even against anybody else. We saw that clip with that guy in the mask freaking out, saying like, "What rights have you lost?" and so on and so forth. You know that clip. Yeah. And the guys behind the camera they're just joking with him. Like, okay, buddy, that's great. Good for you. Move along now.
Yeah.
Like, we're not here to fight you.
And yellow stars at the same protest.
A few people shouting and waving swastikas does not define who Canadians are.
Doesn't define the protest either.
Well, also, fun fact, only like a year or two after, I don't remember the exact year when they showed up, but the Canadian Parliament did actually invite an honest-to-God Nazi, and they did actually not salute him, but they applauded him in Parliament. So it's very rich. It's very rich that Trudeau was having all this anti-Nazi talk, and then only to go not even like 2 years after, he actually applauded an honest to God, like a legitimate Nazi officer that was in Ukraine at the time, and had Zelensky applaud him as well. Which, I mean, you could just like you could not find a more poetic moment if you tried, because that's fucking gold.
Ottawa is being besieged by a group of anti-do-anything-about-COVID truckers called the Freedom Convoy.
A so-called Freedom Convoy.
So-called Freedom Convoy of truckers.
It's a cult.
Yes, it is.
We've heard it called a nationwide insurrection. A threat to democracy, an insurrection, sedition.
This is a moment for responsible leaders to think carefully about where they stand.
So this threat to democracy claim that they made at the end there, you'll hear it time and time again regarding the footage of the convoy, but this was not during an election. This was not following like the end of an election. This was actually, I believe, like in the middle of the election, if I have my timeline correct. But in any case, the point is, there was no democratic process that was stopped as a result of this convoy. There was no election or formal notice or even any kind of like rejection of the democratic process. I mean, Parliament was still allowed to go on. They still had Parliament sittings and they had votes and they had everything. Right?
They still had we didn't put a stop to that.
Yeah, the government was still functioning. There was nothing actually preventing that. So this idea that this was somehow preventing democracy from operating and that there was some January 6th style insurrection could not have been further from the truth. I mean, at no point did people even enter Parliament. In fact, they stayed well away from it. They didn't even go on the Parliament lawn. They were barred from it. And they obeyed that order. They didn't go beyond the gates. So I'm not sure where this anti-democratic claim comes from. But as per usual, as most things with the convoy, that's just how it went. Just moving on here. You also had claims of arson. There's this one apartment block in Ottawa. This is a famous incident at the time where somebody, I mean, literally took like a fire starter from Canadian Tire. Honestly, if I even pull up the Canadian Tire website, I bet I could find exactly the brand of the fire starter.
Fire bricks or whatever.
Yeah, it was like one of those flat ones. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Yeah, it was like one of these. It was literally like one of these. That somebody had decided would be a great idea to set an apartment building on fire, which, first of all, as you can see here by the evidence shown by the CBC investigation, this was like in the middle of the hallway. So you know it's a leftist. Because no right-leaning person...
They don't know how fire works?
Exactly. Like, no right-leaning person that has actually ever, like, gone camping or had any experience in the outdoors, like, nobody thinks that this is a fucking good idea. At the least, right, hypothetically, right, if I was to set an apartment building on fire, if, hypothetically, I would at least, like, do my due diligence to, like, I don't know, get some sticky tack and put it up against some drywall, or like get it as close to some sources of wood if possible, maybe bring some kerosene, some additional fire starter. I wouldn't just light the brick and leave it on the floor. That's retarded.
Just find the garbage room. Just light
literally
the garbage flame.
Yeah. If you just put it down the garbage chute.
Yeah.
Like literally, that's all you have to do to start a fire. But because this was an inept leftist, they just, I guess they don't know how fucking fire works. And so years later, right, or sorry, rather months later, they finally charged somebody for this, and they found that there was no links to the actual convoy. Here it is. The incident on Lisgar Street prompted city politicians and some of the building's residents to link it to the events of the protest, which occupied streets in front of Parliament Hill and angered downtown residents for more than 3 weeks. Let me see if where's the actual... Yes, in news releases announcing both sets of charges, police said there was no information indicating the men were involved in any way with the protest. So this is a rumor that started at the time. People were like, "Oh my God, these violent convoy agitators were trying to set an apartment building on fire." Couldn't have been further from the truth. Couldn't have been further from the truth. And this example here was used by members of parliament as an example for why the convoy was so violent. Okay, I don't know why they keep asking me to log in. I almost fucking doxed myself by logging in there. Thank God I did not. Public Safety Minister Marco Mendocino, last night repeated false claims Freedom Convoy protesters. Yeah. Attempted to burn down an Ottawa apartment building. Mendocino made remarks in committee testimony and as MPs and senators puzzled over why cabinet declared a national emergency to end a protest. Quote, those of us who were here were generally aware of the boisterous atmosphere, but it was far worse and criminal, testified Mendocino. There was a, quote, high degree of anxiety, concern, frustration, anger, which was regrettably justified, he added. Oh, here it is. Mendocino continued, quote, when seniors can't get around because public transportation can't get to them, when people who live in apartment buildings find their front doors are locked and that fires are set in the hallways and corridors, and there was a point of order they interjected, and they stated that the Ottawa Police Service actually provided evidence that there was no claim that this was in any way related to the convoy. But Marco Mendocino made that claim regardless, and so did plenty of other people at the time, which, cool. I guess that we could just lie. Straight up in Parliament, we could just fucking lie and get away with it.
Well, the problem ended up being is that this had real repercussions because people would believe this stuff, right? It reminds me of when I was talking to that kid I was working beside, and he said, yeah, my family called and said, oh, are you safe and so on, because he was living downtown Ottawa at the time.
I remember,
he was saying, oh, are you safe and so on, blah, 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 because they're carrying like Confederate flags out there, and him being a black gentleman, his family was concerned for them. And it's like, no, you could, if you went outside, you weren't locked down, man. You were just reading the news too much. You and your family. You're free to walk. You're free to go wherever you wanted to. Nobody was going to stop you. Nobody was going to bother you because of your skin color or anything like that. Like I said, the convoy was the place of peace and love.
Which, once again, I mean, the penultimate point, and we'll cover this later on in the episode tonight, but the penultimate point that proves this is that the organizers of the convoy, they were not charged with terrorism. They were not charged with any grave offense. They were charged with mischief. They were charged, not only were they charged with mischief, but it was the longest mischief trial in Canadian history, which, look, with all due respect, mischief, dude, that's some fucking cartoon language, okay? That is some 1940s Hanna-Barbera, fucking Warner Brothers, Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny language, okay?
Some backyard rules bullshit is what it is.
Right? Mischief is like, dude, that's some Dennis the Menace shit. All right, that's not. These people are organized terrorists who seek to undermine the democracy of Canada. That's not that. It doesn't fit the bill. It does not fit the bill in any way. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to say that the Freedom Convoy was the penultimate threat to Ottawa's and furthermore Canada's function, right? Its ability to function, that it was impeding its ability to function, and then also charge these people with something that, I don't know, if I threw rocks at my, girlfriend's window trying to get her attention, like it's not the there's no equivalence here.
You're right. No, absolutely. The balance is way off, and it's the same thing if you consider the use of the Emergencies Act. Because the Emergencies Act is basically designed to be used for terrorists, and then you charge them with mischief. And the funny thing was, it wasn't even mischief at first. It was initially the counseling of mischief. So they weren't even committing it themselves. They were somehow
they were advising other people,
whispering into other people's ear. Like, yeah, no. I didn't think the charges would actually stick, given what they were, because it was so mild. So mid.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think that they would have found like some other harsher, more, I don't know, legally legitimate language to charge them with, but I guess they couldn't make it up, so mischief is what they were stuck with. But this is a point that as we move on here is important to make. The part of the reason that the Emergencies Act was used and the justification for it was that all other avenues had been expended. That the Ontario Police Force or the OPP, that the Ottawa Police Service was unable to enact their will to use the law to the best of their extent to clear the convoy. So the argument was we used all the measures available to us and we still haven't been able to clear the convoy. And so now we need this new super duper awesome extreme act, the Emergencies Act, a war times act that is used in times of war or is supposed to be.
Yeah.
That was the justification they used, that because we couldn't get all these other means and tools at our disposal to be effective to clear the convoy, we need to now invoke this super duper urgent act, which is so strange because how is it that you can say that a convoy that you have seen for days, if not weeks on end, people were posting about this on social media. Nobody was hiding. Everybody was posting on their main feeds talking about, oh, the convoy's headed in this direction. The CBC had coverage of them going across the country. Okay, these people are intimately aware of the situation. They understand exactly how many people are headed to Ottawa, or at least have an estimation of how many people are headed to Ottawa, what kind of people are headed to Ottawa, and if they don't have that understanding, if they don't have that information, then what the fuck good is our intelligence service? Like, what role do they serve if they're not able to detect through social media feeds something a 12-year-old could do, right? Something a fucking monkey could do, right? If that is possible by someone just with a fucking flip phone, right? Someone that can actually just like skim social media feeds and understand what's going on, but the police service can't, the provincial police service can't, the federal intelligence services can't. How does that make any sense? And then also, if they are to make this argument, and by they I mean the government, if they're going to make this argument that we were not able to ascertain the level of the threat, we were not able to understand to what extent these people would be committed to the cause, then what does that say about their ability to deal with actual terrorism? What does that say about their ability to deal with actual people that like seek to do us harm on a national level?
Real threats, yes.
Yeah. What does that actually mean? And so in this article here by the CBC, published in 2023, it says, a failure by the Ottawa Police Service to properly assess intelligence gathered at numerous protest convoys converged on the capital, coupled with a, quote, confused command and control structure at the top of the organization, were major factors in enabling and exacerbating the 3-week occupation of the city last winter. For those who don't know, Ottawa, being the nation's capital, sees quite a few protests throughout the year. It's kind of a hotbed for protests. And naturally, because it is the capital, it makes sense. That's where you go to get your voice heard. If you actually want your movement to have any say, any teeth, any actual influence in whatever realm they're doing, whether it's the Ukraine war, the Israel-Palestine war, what have you, right? That is the place. And so if that's what we're starting from, there is no feasible way that I can accept the fact that these people, the Ottawa Police Service, the OPP, even the feds, that they have no instruction, no preparation whatsoever on how to deal with protests. There is literally no way that that is possible because Ottawa is literally, and I know that word is overused, but it's literally the hotbed for protests across Canada. That is where you go to make your voice heard. So how is it that the Ontario Police Force, the Ottawa Police Service and the OPP and also the feds were not able to predict this? I don't understand that.
Well, and it makes it even more unfeasible because of the grandeur that the convoy had. We had people stopping along all overpasses, running flags, hanging stuff from their cars, and then the convoy itself wasn't a minor thing. They're in huge trucks, man. You know? Like believing that these inadequacies are somehow, explicable verges on the outrageous. Because a massive number of people managed to run straight across your country in huge trucks with massive support, roadside support, social media presence saying like, oh, we'll be passing here, we'll be passing there, letting people know that they were going to be there. So if they wanted to come out and support them roadside, they could. How is it feasible that you don't gauge this movement correctly? Like you were saying, oh, I'm not sure how long the organization, was getting started or when the convoy actually put its tires to the asphalt and got a move on. But I remember hearing about the convoy probably mid-February, maybe even earlier February. And initially I was hesitant too, because, you hear about these protests and half the time it's a nothing burger. Half the time, 30 some people show up and actually stand out there and will freeze your ass off with you. And it's like, but a couple weeks after that, once this started getting going, once it started getting closer and closer to home, once the Eastern convoy also got involved and started making its way, how do you not gauge this appropriately? That's baffling.
Yeah, and as shown in the footage that we're showing you now, this is part of the footage that we show as part of the intro to the show. Like, how is it that you're able to miss this? How is it that our federal intelligence agencies, how is it that the provincial police forces, how is it that the municipal police forces can miss something like this? I mean, you literally have traffic backed up just because of the sheer amount of truckers, and this isn't the only footage from it. Here's some more footage of literally hundreds of trucks rolling by. I mean, I don't understand. Like, look at this. I don't understand how any of this can be missed.
No, that's just ridiculous.
Right. So this
that last clip, the headlights went back out into the horizon. I mean,
yeah. So this narrative that somehow the Freedom Convoy snuck up on Ottawa, or that it was somehow able to infiltrate the highways, like I don't understand how that argument has any legs to stand on when you actually see the footage of this happening. And once again, CBC was there to cover this on the ground. A lot of this footage here is just personal drone footage or just like camcorder footage that people had of the convoy itself. But CBC was actually there at like the main sites, in whether it was Toronto, Windsor, what have you. They were actually there on the highways getting footage of this. So how is it that news never actually made it to Ottawa? How is it that this information never made it to Ottawa? And so what we're doing here, right, with asking all these, well, they're really stupid questions, because the answer is clear. The answer is clear, is that they knew. They were aware of this. That they were that they actually knew what was going on. They were cognizant of the fact that these people were headed to Ottawa and to all these different bridge crossings and whatnot. And yet the government gets to make the argument that, oh, we were uniquely unprepared. It was just what a fucking boondoggle. The provincial police didn't know what was going on. The municipal police didn't know what was going on, who was in charge, who they could talk to. With all due respect, with all due fucking respect, you can only feign ignorance and incompetence for so long until it then becomes a concern of the citizen to say, okay, if you're not able to handle a couple of truckers in the winter, a couple of hundred truckers in the winter, how are we supposed to trust you with the safety of the nation? How are we supposed to trust you with our personal safety, our national sovereignty, if you can't even deal with, I don't know, just checking your fucking Twitter feed?
If you can't deal with an open air convoy of truckers, how do we expect you to be able to trust you with the cloak and dagger, that goes on in behind the scenes? between nations. Like, you're our security services, national security, local security, whatever.
Yeah,
You
and then
don't
here,
you don't react appropriately to this. And this has been the main story. I told you before we started the show. This has been all over the place. This is all the news articles we'll talk about, was the lack of preparation that evidently the city had for the convoy.
yeah, and I mean, it says here, quote, much of the disarray in Ottawa was a result of the OPS's incorrect belief regarding how long the protests would last. And it says here, the earliest Hendon report warned. I think there's a spelling. The earliest Hendon's report warned that protesters lacked an exit strategy after arriving in Ottawa, that hundreds of vehicles from numerous convoys were participating, and that individuals and fringe ideologies were joining the movement. And this is a report dated January 13th. This is weeks.
So they were keeping their eye on the friggin' convoy for a long time.
This is a whole month before the convoy got started and was in full swing. And says here, part of the problem existed at the top of the OPS, where Rouleau described an atmosphere of distrust and dysfunction. For example, while former chief Peter Slowly began receiving intelligence updates as early as January 13th, his deputy chief Steve Bell and Patricia Ferguson, who also testified at last fall's public hearings, didn't receive their first update until January the 20th and didn't see the Hendon report until the day before the convoys arrived in Ottawa. Quote, the OPS lacked a system to ensure that intelligence reports were disseminated to the entire executive, Rouleau wrote, a situation that was allowed to continue, quote, right up until the arrival of the convoy. I mean, once again.
Sure, but you can't be this ignorant.
Yeah.
This was being covered everywhere. This major event is coming to your city. You don't hear about this? I remember one of the biggest messages was that we will not leave until blank. So to say like, oh, we misjudged how long the protest was going to be here is kind of ridiculous, because we told you how long we were going to be here. And just because you don't see a report on it means you're completely blind to what's happening around you?
And it says here that the commission also found that Russell Lucas, who was appointed incident commander on January the 21st, quote, initially discounted the intelligence that the Freedom Convoy would remain in and disrupt Ottawa until its demands were met, because it did not align with his experience of anti-vaccine protests by local truckers in 2020 and 2021. Okay. Just literally turn on the news. Literally just watch the news and look at the amount of trucks going by. Just count them one by one. Pay a fucking intern to sit in a corner and watch CBC all day and to count the trucks one by one by one. And that would have been literally all you needed to understand what was happening. Just like put an intern in a corner, give him as much fucking caffeine as he desires, and let them count the individual trucks. Put some fucking autistic spurg in charge of this, and he would have told you exactly how many trucks would have been headed in that direction. I mean, literally all you had to do was just put somebody like at a highway leading to Ottawa with one of those fucking those clicker counters, and just have them click it, and then every couple of hours just give a call. Hey, by the way, another 100 trucks rolled by. It's literally that simple. Just put an autist in charge. It's literally that simple.
But it was going as far as like social media bans as well, because I remember there was a lot of talk on Reddit about the convoy. It was the main place where I was getting a lot of my information on the convoy. I don't know. I didn't find I wasn't on Facebook, but I don't think there was much on Facebook, if I remember. I don't know. I can't speak on that. But I was getting most of my information through Reddit about the convoy, its movements, how big it was getting, where it was coming from, kind of a look into its ideology and so on. And I was getting banned from other Reddit threads for interacting with these COVID threads about the convoy. So somebody's looking. You guys knew how big this was. You know, if it's getting to the point where accounts are getting banned online from associating with other accounts based on their interaction with another thread. Like, again, it's just, I'm going to say it again. It's unfathomable that you didn't see it coming, that you couldn't have been prepared for this.
Yeah, and so the implication here is that I have to assume that this is on purpose, because if this was actual incompetence, then first of all, what the fuck are these people getting paid to do?
Pathetic. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are they getting paid their salaries for if you are unable to handle truckers, peaceful truckers? Not a single Molotov was thrown, not a single punch was thrown, no single like incident of actual violence against any other people recorded by either the police services or any actual social media footage. Nothing of actual note happened in the convoy to make it a quote unquote terrorist threat, and yet they were labeled as such. If none of that actually happened, if the convoy was not as violent as people made them out to be, then how is it that our police forces were not able to handle this? How were they not able to blockade the roads? How were they not able to set up inspection points? I don't know, even like checkpoints. They couldn't have done that. There's no legal basis for that. There was no way that they could have shut some of the roads down or checked people's papers as they were coming through. I mean, it's easy. You'd literally just ask the person, where are you headed to Ottawa? Are you in a semi, or are you just in a regular car? Right? There would have been ways for them to actually stop these trucks from coming in.
Yeah, they could have dissipated these convoys way before they kind of all accumulated into this massive group. Absolutely. And they did do some work on blocking roads, because I'll tell you what, we could have flooded Ottawa with the amount of trucks that were supposed to be down there.
Oh, it could have been, yeah. It could have been a lot worse, but people do get fines. I mean, Jesus Christ, that one time that you and me, we were parked, we parked at the fucking metro to get some groceries. Or like, no, we parked at the metro parking lot to get groceries at a store that was like a block away or something. And literally, like, we checked the time of the ticket. It would have had to have been an incident where, in the moment that we got out of the car, the moment that the officer saw us not go into the metro, for which like we were in the parking lot for, he would have had to go over and actually write the ticket. So for anyone that lives in Ottawa, bylaw are fucking pieces of shit, right?
They're
like,
a menace.
They are like legitimately a menace to that city, and people that actually live there know exactly what that means. So the fact that they were not able to like give these people citations, give them parking tickets, or have their vehicles towed, I mean, I find that laughable. I find that really, really, really hard to believe. If these people are so fucking dead set on enforcing bylaws like 24/7, but just the one time when the convoy comes in, they're just inept. They completely fall by the wayside. I find that a little bit hard to believe.
See, that's a tough one for me, because I could argue that bylaw regulations like that need to be lifted in moments of something like a protest, like a motor vehicle protest. Because I feel like at that point, you're also infringing on people's ability to protest, right? A lot of these people weren't from Ottawa. They weren't even from Ontario. So having to be, billed like that in a situation, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, but I do see what you're saying. You're basically getting to the point that they didn't do everything to the full extent of the law in order to attempt to push these people out before the application of the Emergencies Act.
Yeah, because my general point is this: there are laws against parking on the street for extended periods of time. And the fact that they weren't able to use the existing laws as they exist on the books right now to clear these people from the streets, they weren't able to call any, like, no tow trucks, like nobody was able to come in and remove these vehicles. I find that really hard to believe, that they weren't able to get somebody even outside of the province to come in and do this. And as we cover the story later on, we'll present evidence that actually the US, the Americans, actually offered us sending some of their own tow trucks to get rid of these 18-wheelers and whatnot, which the Canadian government denied for some reason. The only reason that we have to understand why this was actually the case is because they wanted this. right? That this is the overarching argument they're making with all this. It seems as though, and until we have definitive proof of this, we cannot make that case, but it seems as though the Canadian government wanted this protest to get as out of hand as possible, as quickly as possible, so that they had the legal justification to step in and say, hey, this needs to end right now. Right? It seemed as though they were looking for any excuse, which is why, once again, that story that we presented about the arson, Marco Mendocino gladly stood in front of Parliament and straight up lied that people in the convoy were responsible for that, which they weren't. They tried to say that the convoy was violent. There has been no actual certifiable proof that the convoy was violent. They tried to make it so that the convoy was aligned with the Nazis. There is no actual proof that the convoy, as like just the grand scheme in the grand scheme of things, was somehow associated with Nazis or Nazism. So all these claims are falling flat, and it leads me to believe, because once again, I can't make that assertion without getting like an actual, seeing proof of some memo getting passed down or actual like recording of Trudeau saying something, but it seems as though, right, especially with the media coverage compilation that we played earlier, it seems as though they wanted people to believe that the convoy was so extreme, even though they weren't, so that they could justify the use of something like the Emergencies Act.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because just before the show, I was taking a look at kind of the reasoning behind why Canadian tow trucks refused to interact with the convoy. And I remember during the convoy, I remember seeing it more as like a point of solidarity. I remember seeing stories that, these tow truck drivers are like, no, we're not going to go in there because we stand with the protest, right? And then now, I was looking through on Perplexity just before the show, and I was seeing more of a narrative that they were terrified to interact with the convoy, that they were worried about outbreaks and violence if they showed up. And it's like, okay, frustration in having tow trucks show up, maybe, but violence, I still don't think would have happened.
Well,
because they got towed eventually anyway. That's the thing. Is at the end of the day, they got towed eventually anyway, and there was no violence.
Yeah,
other than what the RCMP had conducted on its own citizenry.
Yeah, we can't really like predict, like to say like, oh, what would have happened, coulda, shoulda, woulda, and all that. But at the end of the day, if the convoy was as a violent movement as they tried to make it out to be, would we have not seen examples earlier? Or especially when the police cracked down on them, would we have not seen examples of people attacking the police openly and instigating violent acts with them, like throwing rocks or ice at them or snow, like the Molotovs or what have you? But we saw literally none of that. And as you said, they cleared the trucks. Eventually, they cleared the trucks. They were able to tow them out. So this is something that they've always been able to do. And like some people they've like I've had this thought where before marijuana was legalized, I've always thought like, why is it that the people on 420 they could just march openly? Why don't the cops just go in and arrest them all? And the understanding is, well, if you start arresting one or two people, others are going to get agitated. You're going to have violence break out and the riot police, and then just none of it looks good.
Yeah.
Right, and so you could make that argument for the convoy that they was just too many people at too quick a time for them to do anything about it. But the trucks were towed.
But 3 weeks is still kind of a long time, because after the initial weekend where like there was tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people down at Parliament, it really died off quickly, because those people who took the opportunity of the convoy's arrival to just come out and party and socialize and blah, 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 that died off by the following weekend. And now you have like more of the hardcore protesters here. And that group is a lot smaller, the initial group. So they didn't have to wait 3 weeks to come in and take down this convoy.
And not just that, but the oh my god, I just had this thought. I can't believe I just forgot it. Oh, it'll come back to me, I hope. gosh fucking damn it! I
You're
hate when
talking
that
about
happens.
eventually the trucks were taken out anyway, so they could have done this at any time. Like that's what got me on the whole train of.
Oh no, my point. I was gonna make the point that if the convoy was so violent in the first place, that this argument that they made regarding the violence of it. Oh, I just remembered the court injunction that stopped the honking. They followed it. There was a court injunction that was made following the first weekend of protests to stop the honking, and the courts ruled that yes, the honking was excessive and that it needed to be stopped. And guess what the truckers did? They followed the law. They obeyed. So that sets a precedent for the convoy and how people should operate with the convoy, how the police service should operate with the convoy, because now it tells them, yes, these people are willing to follow the laws. They are willing to obey. They are willing to concede certain aspects of their protest, which the honking, that's a big one for them.
Well, we're not there to disrupt the lives of our fellow man. That's the whole thing, right? Is like, we're not here to make your lives hard. That's not our objective. That's not why we're doing this. So it's like, yeah, well, it bothers us that we can't, be disruptive in the way that we all know protests should be, or how they naturally, I guess, progress to that point. That's just the nature of a protest, is to be disruptive. I'm sorry. And we've talked about this before too, about the honking incident. But if it becomes like too much of a burden for the citizenry, for the citizens around us, like that's our objective isn't to annoy you. So of course we're not going to persist despite the fact, like, we're rational individuals, law-abiding citizens, and that's all that represented. The injunction on the honking.
Yeah, and the moment that it came down from the courts, the truckers obeyed. And they didn't have to. They didn't have to obey the court injunction. They didn't have to obey that law, but they chose to. They chose to do that because they didn't want to make the people of Ottawa to be an enemy of theirs. They wanted to make it so that they were speaking on behalf of the citizens. That's why they were there in the first place. And moving on a little further here, one of the other actions that the government took against the citizens during the convoy was the freezing of bank accounts. And some of these freezes, they were not only encouraged, but openly celebrated by some people more than others. And the individual that we are focusing on in this case is Aubrey Cottle from Oshawa, Ontario, who hacked and released the private info of donors to the Freedom Convoy through GiveSendGo, who has actually just been recently arrested and is now facing charges for hacking and theft of data from the Texas Republican Party. And how do we know that he is the man behind the original hack of GiveSendGo? Well, he was so kind enough to go on TikTok or Instagram or wherever the fuck he streamed this, and to openly say that he was doing this. And let's watch.
Yes, I doxed the truckers. I did it. It was me. I hacked GiveSendGo, baby, and I do it again. I do it 100 times! I did it! I did it! Come at me! What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to me, huh? Yes, I doxed the...
Okay.
Seems like a perfectly hinged individual, wouldn't you say?
Perfectly hinged.
But at the same time, claiming to commit... What is that even? Information fraud? Like what?
Well, it's not fraud, but it's hacking of information, and it seemed weird at the time that we had this individual who was known, and apparently I remember reading this at the time that he had actually worked with CSIS to an extent, that he had some collaborative effort that like he had partnered with them on previous to the convoy. So he was a known person to the Canadian government. And he was able to get away with this. And I guess because, he was essentially fulfilling the needs of the government at the time, they didn't feel the need to go after him which I can actually
Did
understand
him a
because,
favor. Yeah.
well, it's difficult to make a case because he's like Give Send Go is an American. It exists in America. It's an American organization. Doesn't exist in Canada, even though he is releasing the information of Canadian donors. And all those people got doxxed. Some of those people, I wouldn't be surprised if they were fired or if they lost their businesses as a result of their doxing. But now he is dealing with a trial, which is actually fairly recent, just about a year ago. He was found to be guilty of hacking theft data from the Texas Republican Party, which, yeah, I mean that makes sense. The guy does have a pink streak in his hair, so the fact that he would go against the Texas Republicans kind of speaks for itself. What else here? Oh, and of course, the actual physical force that the Ottawa Police Service exerted on the citizenry. I mean, I don't know if it was the Ottawa Police or the OPP or whoever was responsible for this, but here they are. I mean, just straight up clocking people. Just kneeing that guy. There it is.
That's a wounded veteran! Yep! That's a wounded veteran! Yep! That's a wounded warrior right there! They got a shield on his fucking head! Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up!
Why is this so grainy? We're living in fucking 2026, man.
I had the same question as soon as it started.
Like, why is this so pixelated? How many times has this been saved and shared? This is crazy. But the most famous incident, obviously, is the trampled grandma. Which, I mean, look, I don't know why you'd bring your grandma to a protest like this, but I mean, I'm not saying she deserved to be trampled as a result of that, but like, probably not the best place.
How dare you be here?
Probably not the best place for a grandma.
Here come the horses! Hold the line!
Especially maybe not on the front line, you know? Like,
Come on through. What is happening here? Wow! What is this lady doing? Trampling! Trampling horses! Trampling! Stop it! Stop it! Look! Oh my god! They just trampled this lady. They just trampled that lady. They just fully...
like, who's instigating violence here? Is it the convoy protesters?
There was overhead footage of this. I want to see if I can find. Oh, you already seen this. Really? Is that no? I remember seeing overhead footage, like somebody
Like
drone footage that somebody had actually, yeah, like this view right here. I want to see that view. I just don't want to see any stupid commentary. I just want the fucking clip. It's just this guy talking.
there was one up above that had the same, like that one there. I don't know if it'll have the clip.
This is more commentary. Yeah, I guess they did a follow-up with her 3 years ago. Once again, it's just a highlight of clips. I just want to see the clip. I just want to see the clip where she was trampled. Oh shit, she actually got stepped on. Wow. Oh my god. Yeah, straight up trampled.
Ay.
Which, I mean, look, if horses are coming, you should probably fucking step aside. But that is certainly an extreme way to deal with the convoy of bouncy castles and barbecues. Like that's a crazy method to use. And where was all the like the anti-police people when this happened? Where was all the anti?
Yeah, the defund the police and
defund the police. Where were those people when this was happening? I'd like to know. But in any case, that was just an example to show that the level of physical force that was used in the convoy. There's many other clips that you can find there, but for the sake of moving on, because we have quite a few topics to cover still, we'll get into this story of the Phantom Honks, which I mean, you know what? I'll let Zexi Lee speak in her own terms, because this woman right here is a fucking, she's a mystery. Nobody knows what the fuck happened to her. She has no social media feed whatsoever, and yet she is one of the main defendants in a currently ongoing lawsuit against the convoy. She's partnered with several businesses in the Ottawa area to essentially create a class action lawsuit against the convoy because they interrupted businesses for so long. Even though the businesses were not forced to shut down by the government, mind you, they made that decision on their own. There was no actual law or anything barring them. Do I have that correct, or do I have that backwards?
I think you nailed that. I don't think there was ever any official statements or anything on closing your businesses while the Freedom Convoy was down. I would find that ridiculous if it did happen, if I heard anything about it. So no, I think you nailed it. I think they closed it on their own accords, because that's the only reason I've made the arguments before about like not just Rito Center closing, but local businesses in the Byward Market complaining during the convoy. Oh, well, we're not making money. We have to keep our doors closed. Why? You're a bakery. You're a butcher. You're a fish market. You don't think these people need to eat? How much money would you make if you had just kept your doors open? Like, I wouldn't be making that argument if I had heard of it, like an actual injunction or anything coming into play, anything official.
Yeah, and so she testified during the public inquiry into the Emergency Act regarding her experience of phantom honks, which let's just let her say it in her own words here.
I was never deterred from going outside.
Well, that's a start.
Openly says that she wasn't deterred from going outside.
First thing on the clip.
Literally, like that there was, I mean, text of her saying that this was a problem. But anyways, let's go on.
There was only one moment where I was very, very afraid after my identity and name had been made public, and I had really covered myself up completely so that I was completely unrecognizable.
2 of my sons are dead because of this.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
How do you know they aren't?
Why? You're very emotional right now. I'm sorry.
And see,
It's not your city. Go back to
it's not your city.
And as egg throwing began to occur from my building.
From your building? So people were throwing eggs at the protesters? Oh, yeah.
Can you describe what you mean by the egg throwing?
Well, you know, there were very large trucks parked everywhere, and in some of these instances, they were parked right next to some high-rise condo buildings. And as a result, some people may have gotten some cartons of eggs and, you know, had their little retaliation in frustration, because really, what else could they do?
So would you say that you felt unsafe walking the streets?
I didn't feel safe, but it's hard to describe it as unsafe.
Very clearly, it continued to escalate, and violence of many kinds were inflicted upon the residents of Centertown.
Though I didn't often see direct acts of violence, there was a certain chaos on the streets, and
okay,
there was implied acts of violence. Just as terrifying, don't you know?
Okay. All right. Like this lady, mind you, the last clip, this is the more important one. Once again, she's the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit against the protesters, which to this day has not yet been deemed a class action lawsuit. It's still in the courts. They're still figuring it out. Okay. So they really jumped the gun on this one here. They're trying to make it what it's not. But she is being interviewed by the CBC as some on the ground correspondent or person that has evidence regarding the violent acts of the convoy. And it seems as though the woman that's here, it's most likely her, straight up just tells a woman that no, actually, the people that you know that died during COVID due to suicide or what any other causes actually did not die. Like, just straight up says that to her, which
that's.
I mean, that's crazy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and then just tells him to fuck off. And then the CBC treats this person.
Claims the city. This is my city.
Yeah, and the CBC treats this person as some arbiter of truth. I'm not sure how that happens because I mean, like, you could not have found a more inept person, let alone inept woman, to make these claims. Because, like, let's just listen to this again here.
Very clearly, it continued to escalate, and violence of many kinds were
many kinds of violence. Not one of which I can point out, but many kinds.
Well, I was going to say this earlier, is that I can think of a handful of clips off the top of my head on the good actions of the protests and the fun-loving things. Like, I still remember seeing that clip of the three guys in like the hot tub on Wellington or whatnot. But I can't think of one clip of a violent action happening at the convoy. I can't think of one.
No.
I can't think of a video of the convoy of anybody taking a swing or nothing.
Yeah, because once again, if there was any single one act of violence that stood out above all or that just seemed to be of note, this would have played 24/7 during the coverage, especially if it had any link to the convoy organizers. This would have been getting airtime. The case would have been live streamed. We would have gotten fucking on the ground footage and interviews and reporters and everything. They would have stuck them. They would have stuck the entire journalistic machine of Canada up that person's ass to investigate where they grew up and which town they came from, what inspired them to commit that act of violence. Nothing. The only claims that we got, this one woman saying that she felt threatened walking on Parliament, which, no police cases, no actual evidence to speak of. The fire, the arson that happened in that apartment building, the quote-unquote arson by the trucker convoy, no link to the truckers whatsoever. So once again, this is all to illustrate, this is the entire media storm that was set up to label the convoy what it wasn't. Because once again, if it actually was as violent and as negative as they said there was, we would have plenty more examples to show. But we don't. We just don't. And I also looked it up here, regarding the closing of the Rideau Mall. It says here, the mall's management stated that Rideau Center closed on January 29th, 2022 and stayed closed for several weeks because of, quote, ongoing public safety issues linked to the downtown protests and convoys around Parliament Hill. This is an article from the Capital Current, which I believe is an Ottawa local newspaper. And it says here, Oxford/CF Rideau Center emphasized that the decision was based on consultation with the City of Ottawa and Ottawa Police over safety risks, not because of a particular politician or federal official personally ordered the mall to be shut. Ottawa City officials and the Ottawa Police Service coordinated the broader public safety response to the convoy, including declaring the downtown core an emergency zone, but they did not directly direct the mall to close. That remained a private sector business decision. So these people that had an opportunity of a lifetime to make a fuck ton of money decided not to because of, I don't know, reasons.
In an already slow time, as is written in that article there, the closure created further hardships for stores during an already slow time in the retail business. So you have this possibility of this massive boom in this slow time, and you decide to close.
Well, not just that, but it says here, while some relief would follow, including a $20 million federal recovery
I read
fund,
that too. I didn't even hear about that.
announces in February for Ottawa businesses affected by the occupation, a downtown-focused, quote, workplace confidence initiative launched last month by the Ottawa Board of Trade and Ottawa Tourism. The impact of the convoy crisis on the capital's commercial core was profound, but it didn't have to be, because these people would have gladly spent their money at your business if you had just opened up. Like literally if you just stayed open, you would have made so much more money than you would have in a regular winter season. But they decided not to because of, I don't know. But we don't know. We don't know. They say because it was a direction of the Ottawa Police Force, they said it was unsafe. But once again, like they're not telling you, there's no law, nobody's actually putting a gun to your head. They made that decision independently. And in fact, the store owners, they should sue these people. They should have sued them and said, hey, we should have been allowed to stay open because what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, no, it's so heavily political, and people are so and the fear mongering, sorry, that it completely overrides the common sense when it comes to business. Because there's a bakery downtown in the Byward Market, and could you imagine how many products they would have sold if they had tailored any of them towards the convoy? Imagine they made trucker cookies.
Well, not even. Well, you don't
Anybody
have
who's
to.
coming down is going to buy one of those. Like
It doesn't even have to be a trucker cookie. It just has to be just a maple leaf.
But keep this away from politics, right?
Just a maple leaf.
Think non-political. An event has come to Ottawa. How are you going to capitalize on this from a business perspective?
They could have just made it a maple leaf. They could have just sold maple leaf cookies, and people would have gladly bought them. And this is the same bakery that, like, for those people that live in Ottawa, they know exactly which one we're talking about. The one that has that famous photo of Obama coming down there. You could see Parliament from that bakery. I used to walk by it on my way to work in the mornings. Yeah, if they had remained open for business, if places like those had remained open for business during the convoy, they would have made bank, especially during COVID. And they didn't. And so they shot themselves in the foot, and they have nobody but to blame but themselves. So the fact that Ottawa was decimated, that it was plagued by an insurrection, a siege, as they called it, that was a self-imposed decision. You guys decided to close your businesses down. No law, nobody directed you, nobody told you that you had to do this because we said so. Nobody did that. You made these conclusions up yourself. And where did it leave you? Like that $20 million fund that went to all these businesses, the taxpayers are on the foot for that. They're the ones that have to foot the bill. They're the ones that have to pay for that. So $20 million, a cool 20 mil went to these private businesses' pockets, which how many of them are like giant conglomerates versus how many of them are independent small businesses? That's a separate discussion, but $20 million that didn't have to be spent there. In fact, I guarantee you they would have made more than $20 million collectively had they been open. But anyways,
They would have made a good amount of money.
Anyways, let's get into the this is
I think
the public
that
inquiry.
was
Sorry, go ahead.
I think that was my point, is that the political mind took over business sense, which makes it seem nefarious. I think is kind of what the point I was getting at. You know?
Oh yeah, that some people were shutting down because they were like, oh, these are right wing.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that I could definitely see that, especially in a city like Ottawa, where I mean, look, you go to most of these stores, they have the fucking everyone is welcome here, pride stickers, pride flags, everything. You can kind of gather what ideology they lean on.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case,
I forgot about the time when gays weren't allowed in Shoppers Drug Mart. My fault.
Yeah. Right before because once again, the implication with those stickers is, okay, so before the stickers were not displayed in your store, only straight people were welcomed, only straight whites were welcome to the store, but the sticker outside of it made it clear. Okay, all right, that's the argument you want to make, fine, sure. In any case, just moving on here to the public inquiry regarding the Emergencies Act, I mean, this is just poetic. We had a lawyer pass out in the middle and just fucking clonk his head on the floor, which vaccinated? I think so. And the reason I say that is because thinking back to it, like, okay, fine. Maybe I don't know the exact circumstances that caused this guy to pass the fuck out, but right now, like, have you noticed that we're kind of in a sufficient drought of people passing the fuck out at random times that they're not supposed to be passing the fuck out in? Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that, like, nobody's really passing out live on air or during a comedy show?
After vaccine shedding has been going on for the past 3-4 years, and nobody needs to re-up on it anymore, and that's weird.
The athletes that are the most physically fit specimens on the face of the planet, they're not just hitting their head on the grass.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not happening anymore. What a weird coincidence that is. What a weird coincidence.
I must be a Nazi. My pattern recognition's going off.
Yeah. What a weird fucking coincidence that nobody's passing out at random anymore. In any case, let's move on here.
Fucking side note.
Well, because fucking, yeah, we have to. Wait, what is this? Oh, I think, hold on. I think I got the link wrong, because this is supposed to be a link to Tamara Lich's post. Oh, there we go. Finally, okay. So this is video footage of Tamara Lich testifying at the Public Commission for the Emergencies Act as to what the reason was for her involvement in the convoy in the first place. And let's just hear it in her own words.
Because I was seeing families torn apart. The suicides in my hometown were so numerous that they stopped reporting them. Elderly people were dying by themselves in long-term care facilities and saying goodbye over iPads. My grandma is 94 years old, and she was locked in her little apartment by herself for 2 years. My father is a very social man. He is the Coffee Row, Saskatchewan father, and I remember him telling me one day that he went down to the local restaurant that he went to every single day. And these are small towns where everybody knows everybody, and he was asked to leave. And I didn't want my children and my grandchildren to live in a world like that.
Which sums up the feelings of many people at the convoy, because the principal complaint was that, like, all jokes and beams and everything aside, was that the government was not only wrong to impose all these penalties on people, but that they were in effect causing a lot of these deaths and a lot of these crises, whether it's with addiction, homelessness, what have you, as a result of the restrictions placed on people, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal. And everybody loved to play the, pass the buck down game throughout the convoy, just so that they wouldn't have to answer to the consequences of what was actually going on. But at the end of the day, people's lives were ruined. Businesses that had existed for generations were decimated. And people lost their lives as a result of lockdowns and all the various restrictions. There's a genuine human cost that is yet to be calculated, because you can't possibly calculate something like that in a dollar figure.
Yeah.
And there are people now that would otherwise be alive without those restrictions that died as a result of them. I mean, it doesn't get any more real than that.
Yeah, no, that's a 1-minute clip, and it tells you almost everything you needed to know right there.
And whatever your feelings of Tamara Lich, like, nobody deserves to go through that.
Exactly. Is that her points are, they're not subjective. This is something that everybody should be open to caring about, right, these topics. As a human being, as anybody with any sense of humanity, how can you not understand the points that she's making? You know, and then you can get into the degree of whether or not, this is actually worth what she's doing, or whether or not her views on the vaccine are one way or another. But at the end of the day, to look at this person and just be like, oh yeah, no, you're a violent Nazi,
an insurrectionist.
It's just disgusting. I mean,
it misses the mark in such a significant way that it's difficult to comprehend what kind of a mentality it takes for a person to truly believe that and to hold those beliefs dear to their heart to this day. To this day. Not just then at a fever pitch, but to this day right now. Yeah. But one of the more infamous clips, which I remember seeing live on the stream, because this is being live streamed to the to the world, really, for anyone that wanted to tune in, was Justin Trudeau straight up saying that. Oh, sorry, that clip will come after this, but this is where Trudeau essentially states that he didn't want to legitimize the convoy by engaging with them, and this is the argument that was made by a lot of the protesters at the time, where you had these three people. You had Tamara Lich, is it Chris Barber? I want to make sure I have the names right.
I think so. Yes, Chris Barber,
Pat King, and Chris Barber.
Pat King, yeah.
These people had organized. They had made their demands clear to the government, and they said they were willing to speak with them to end the convoy early, so long as they actually came to the negotiating table and presented some coherent methods or coherent answers to their demands. And all they had to do was literally just sit down with them and talk, which, with all due respect, that's all the Prime Minister had to do, was sit and listen to these people for a handful of hours, which he could have sacrificed in his time. I mean, actually, at the beginning of the convoy, he couldn't, because Justin Trudeau came down with a case of COVID. So you know what? That's fair. He had to isolate and be away from the protesters. But after he had gotten over his horrendous case of COVID, I'm so glad that he survived. Fucking, you know. I'm so glad that he was able to live through that.
And by the way, that's not us wishing death on him. That's us just saying how mid COVID was. That these people seem to survive it pretty damn easily. You know?
And how ridiculous it was that the timing of the convoy just happened to coincide with his emergency case of COVID. Very strange, but sure, go off. But here's Justin Trudeau essentially saying that he was not willing to engage with them because of the dangerous precedent that it would set of the government listening to its own people.
Okay, so fairly self-explanatory. There's a willingness to discuss, but you were concerned about setting a precedent where a blockade could equal a change in public policy. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think we have a robust functioning democracy, and public protests are an important part of making sure we're getting messages out there, and Canadians are getting messages out there and highlighting how they feel about various issues. But using protests to demand changes to public policy is something that I think is worrisome.
Okay. So thank you, Mr.
Although, sorry, to a certain extent.
No, please go on.
Yeah, protests, if you're out protesting that the government is, shutting down a safe injection site or something, you are asking for changes in public policy. But there is a difference between occupations and saying we're not going until this is changed in a way that is massively disruptive. And potentially dangerous, versus just saying, yeah, we're protesting because we want public policy to change, and we're trying to convince people to get enough of them that politicians will listen to enough people saying, okay, I'm going to lose votes if I don't change this. That's the usual way protests can be effective in our democracies.
Oh, my fault. It was our tone, dude. It was the way we did it. That was the problem. And the other problem is that he goes on to say, oh, well, I don't want to set a precedent that blockades will guarantee you basically a sit down with the Prime Minister. which is fair to say, but to perform a blockade like what the convoy managed to do, you need thousands and thousands of supporters and a stupid amount of public support and media coverage and so on and so forth. Like, something like this doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a month. I can't go out today, go block a major crossing to the US and somehow have a sit down with the prime minister. Like, that's a ridiculous statement to make. That entire argument falls out the window because the convoy was just that big. Not saying I can go out and get 15 people and have a sit down with the prime minister. That's ridiculous.
Well, it's not just that.
Oh, I'm going to set a precedent. That's not setting a precedent. The convoy was massive.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's the fact that he literally did this with BLM. And BLM was arguing for policy changes. These people were arguing for changes to how policing functions.
But every protest is about policy changes.
Yeah, which is why he backpedaled. That's why he backpedaled. That's why he had that moment. He's like, "Oh no, let me clarify. Let me clarify. The convoy was uniquely evil. They were unique in their demands. Yeah,
the way that we went about it. It's the fact that we had the blockade or whatnot, or the fact that we had the honking that was super disruptive and dangerous and potentially dangerous and blah blah blah. It was the way we said it. Oh, we didn't ask nicely.
Yeah,
we didn't ask the way they wanted us to, which would have swept it under the rug anyways.
He was perfectly fine to do shit like this in the middle of COVID, but he's masked up, so that's fine, and he's surrounded by his security, so that's fine. But he's okay to be around hundreds of other people during peak pandemic, essentially, to kneel on behalf of the blacks and the guilty whites. To do something like this, but the moment that the convoy came in, that's a bit of a fucking problem. That's a bit of an oopsie daisies. Sorry,
oopsie.
That's an oopsie whoopsie.
Yeah, when you catch yourself mid sentence, outing yourself.
Literally, he just did that. He literally just did that. And here's more evidence of Justin Trudeau's Olympic level of mental gymnastics. I mean, you got to hand it to this guy. He's a fucking, no wonder he was a drama teacher. The guy is excellent at acting.
We heard evidence from Commissioner Lucky of the RCMP that she had signed off on a plan to enforce and remove the protesters in Ottawa on February 13th, that she had confidence in, that she, the OPP, and the OPS had confidence in. Did you hear that testimony?
No, I disagree with that.
Okay, you disagree with that?
Yes, I do not believe that the plan that was either signed off on supposedly by the RCMP or presented by the Ottawa Police Services on the 13th was in any real regards an actual plan for clearing the protests.
And is this a plan that you saw, or that you were just spoken to about?
I was spoken to about. I did not see it myself.
Okay, and were you spoken to about it by Commissioner Lucky or by Minister Mendocino?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. But as at February 13th, your impression was that the plan that was in place at that time was not one that you or the RCMP had confidence in?
It was not one that we had confidence in, no.
Okay.
Let me just play that again.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Off on supposedly by the RCMP or presented by the Ottawa Police Services on the 13th was in any real regards an actual plan for clearing the protests.
And is this a plan that you saw, or that you were just spoken to about?
I was spoken to about. I did not see it myself.
Okay, and were you spoken to about it by Commissioner Lucky or by Minister Mendocino?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. But as at February 13th, your impression was that the plan that was in place at that time was not one that you or the RCMP had confidence in?
It was not one that we had confidence in, no.
Okay.
Okay, so he was presented a plan by a person that he doesn't remember, and he didn't have confidence in the plan, even though he didn't read the whole plan, but he was just given the cliff notes by somebody in his department who, once again, he doesn't remember who it was. So there was a plan.
Yeah.
So the RCMP presented a plan to clear the convoy. They presented some kind of a plan to deal with these truckers, whether it's through tow trucks or what have you, but he didn't feel that it was sufficient, even though he didn't read the plan himself. Which, look, I get it. The prime minister, the moment that he wakes up, just about every single minute of his day is calculated. He only has so many hours in a day that he has to fill to look over plans, to talk with delegates, to do all the shit that he has to do to make sure that the country runs smoothly. I understand that. The man is in a time crunch. But if you're dealing with something as urgent, right, as in their own words, as potentially violent and insurrectionist as the convoy, if we are to approach this issue with their framing of it, which is the single largest disruption to Canadian life and Canada's security in modern
National
history,
insurrection.
right?
Yeah.
That warrants a Wartime Measures Act. How can you not read the fucking plan?
Hello.
Well, like, what excuse is there for you to not read the fucking plan to clear them? You are like you're being given a gift. The RCMP is presenting you with a gift,
With an out.
with an out. They're literally giving you a plan. We have an idea. We have a working way to do this so that we don't need the Emergencies Act. Here is an out. Here is a way that you can have your cake and eat it too. And he's just like, nah, fuck that.
Well, and this is exactly what kind of gets me deeper and deeper into the hole that this seems more and more intentional, right? Because you had mentioned before the podcast, like, oh yeah, well, with this and so on, it, like the lack of preparation by police and so on for the convoy makes it seem intentional and so on and so forth. And initially, I want to say, well, intentional to do what? To stir up the pot. I see where you're coming from, but I don't want to be jumping to any conclusions.
Because we don't have proof. We don't have proof. We don't have the memo. We don't have the leaked audio. That like, there's no actual proof that the government is like, we can't handle this.
Yeah, exactly. But the deeper we start diving into this, the more and more that starts to look like the case, because I completely forgot about the plans of February 13th. I remember during the convoy, I don't know if there was a leak or what, or somebody reported on it, but I remember hearing plans about having the convoy removed on February the 13th. And I remember the day coming, and I was glued to the news, being like, okay, it's like, what's happening, so on and so forth. Are they actually getting rid of this? And nothing. So is that just intention to prolong what's going on, again, in the hopes that something violent happens, and you finally had to cut it because if you didn't cut it off at some point, now you actually look inept in your job? Like, they're playing this weird fucking balancing game of hoping something will come about and stir up the shit so they can look like the heroes of the day, versus not looking completely useless in defending the heart of the city. And it's just, it keeps going back to that sense of like, how intentional is this? And the more and more you start digging into this, the more and more it just looks bad. It just looks fucking bad.
I mean, it just like,
like you said, like you literally just said, you didn't read the fucking memo. You couldn't take the time to read the plan.
I mean, how long could it be? 20 pages, 30 pages? Like, you can't get through it in an hour. You can't have,
it doesn't matter. You've got thousands of truckers converge on the fucking capital city. You got to do something as the leader of the country. I'm sorry. This isn't your first priority. This isn't the first thing on the docket. This isn't. Hello?
Yeah, like we're not engaged in a war. This is the most pressing thing in Canadian politics to date at the time. Literally the most contentious thing in politics at the time, and he does not have the wherewithal.
All over the world news with that one.
Yeah, he doesn't have the wherewithal to sit down and read the plan handed to him by his own intelligence agencies on how he can deal with clearing this. I mean, if this plan, look, I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying that the thing was a fucking golden goose eggs of a plan. Okay, like the thing might not have been like an easy, check mark to tick off and then that's it. The convoy is done. There would have been plenty of work and plenty of struggle that goes into actually executing the plan, but it doesn't look good for a prime minister to say, "Oh, actually, I didn't read the plan and I didn't have confidence in it." So we're supposed to trust that and the analysis of that plan, because once again, he's admitting here live saying that not only did he not read it, but somebody in his cabinet read it to him who he doesn't remember who read it to him, which fine, fair enough. The guy talks to hundreds of people a day probably, so he doesn't remember every single face. I understand that. But once again, you have that plan disseminated through somebody else. So through their frame of mind, the way that they view life, they look at that plan and then they disseminate it to him and he doesn't have any confidence in it. Well, maybe like he should give it a once over before he goes to sleep or something. Like, you're telling me that you as the prime minister had no time at all to just sit down and read 20 to 30 pages of text that could have alleviated your problem? You're telling me that you didn't have confidence in that and we're supposed to believe you? I once again, as you just stated, you're building up this whole cause of emergency, this justification to enact a War Times Measure Act, but you're not actually willing to do the work to clear it. It doesn't look like. So, like, incompetence, stupidity, malice, what are we supposed to attribute this to? I'm at a loss here, because once again, until we hear the leaked audio or some staffer talking about what actually happened on the ground, we have no evidence to go off of except his words at the testimony, which it seems very strange.
Well, and you made the point of saying, like, okay, if we put the convoy in the framework you want us to put it in, right? And I'm going to focus in on that point of the potential for violence, right? Then Trudeau, he can't even come up with a good enough lie for any of this, which again makes it seem like just complete incompetence almost to a certain point. Because if you're talking about, okay, say the potential for violence, then you're talking about handling a delicate situation, right? You need to handle this with white gloves if that's the framework you're going for. So he couldn't even come up with a lie and say, oh, no, the plan, I looked over it. I didn't want to spark anything yet. I did, like, with the mood of the convoy and so on. It was a very delicate situation, so we wanted to make sure such and such a plan. No, he just didn't read the fucker.
Well, because if he did admit that he did read the plan in the testimony, they would have been like, oh, okay, so let's pull up the plan. What part of it did you not like? What is it that didn't sit well with you? And because he doesn't want to be held up to that standard, it's much easier to say, oh, I was presented with a dissemination of the plan. Somebody gave me the Cliff Notes summary, and I didn't like it. So you're gonna have to ask that person whose name I don't remember that told me about the plan. I'm so far detached from it as the prime minister. I just don't know. So this feigning of ignorance. Once again,
I'm so high up on fucking Mount Everest, I can't see shit. Is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, like literally. This is just once again, it screams to a level of incompetence that, I mean, this really should have been what the Conservatives played during the election. This is what they should have just played. Just nonstop footage of Trudeau at this public hearing saying this about Canadians. And they would have been handed the victory easy peasy. Because if you have such an incompetent man as prime minister, I mean, how could you defend something like this? It doesn't make any sense. But in any case, we have plenty more clips to show, so let's just move on here. This is Chrystia Freeland talking about, once again, the potential for violence.
Very much in my mind was the possibility of violent conflict between people doing the blockading and occupying and other Canadians who were very angry about it. I felt that Canada was sort of a powder keg and that you could have a violent physical confrontation at any point. I didn't visit Windsor at the time, but I heard a lot of people saying, you know, this could really get out of hand. And the people of Windsor, they really understand how important that trade over the Ambassador Bridge is. And I did really fear you could have counter protests and a confrontation there. And that would have been terrible for the people involved and terrible for our country. And I was worried in Ottawa also. And this is now just very sort of personal eyewitness experience. But I don't normally have RCMP security. And I think that's a good thing. I think that says something good about Canada. But the RCMP, they know what I'm doing every day, and it's their job to judge whether they think I need security or not. And I have to say to the RCMP officers who are here, who I recognize, they do a very good job of it, of making that judgment, I think. So a measure for me of how much Ottawa was a powder keg was the fact that I think from the end of January, the RCMP judged that I did need to have RCMP with me, just walking around. And so I didn't feel personally in danger because...
Just as a slight point before I let her continue, it's not because the reason that the RCMP made this assessment, I guarantee you, or at least I would assume, it's not because the people of the convoy were so violent. It's because Chrystia Freeland has hitched her wagon to such an unpopular administration that has fucked over so many people's lives that she is at risk of facing violence from people that are like, hey, where the fuck is our money? Where the fuck is our national development? Why are we leaving senior citizens lying in fucking care homes, dying on their own, staring at their families through iPads? Why are you continuing to support this government? Right? It's not because, once again, the Freedom Convoy was not some uniquely violent or repressive or extremely authoritarian protest that was trying to foment discontent and some kind of insurrection. If that was the case, they would have flooded Parliament. They would have done much more violent things, as they were plenty capable of doing. It's literally because you're part of a government that is squashing the people's rights and freedoms and ways to live that were never, ever, ever part of the plan in Canada up until now, until your administration got in, and now you need RCMP security because you're backing such an unpopular man for the office. But that's just a quick aside. It's not because they were so uniquely violent. It's literally because you hitched your wagon behind such a piece of shit that has fucked over Canadians so badly for generations to come that they cannot have, they can't help themselves but have a violent reaction to you.
Yeah, no, you and I are on the same wavelength on that one. And I find it funny how she basically projects this sense of danger onto the entire country. She's saying, oh, it's a powder keg. It's a powder keg. It's not a powder keg because you're in danger. You feel in danger because you painted a target on your back. Like, you painted a target on yourself and then cry that everybody around you is violent. It's like, that's not how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. But go on, Chrystia. Go on.
The RCMP were taking care of me. But I do remember one morning, and I'm sorry, I didn't write it down in my notebook, so I can't tell you the date. But I remember one morning when I was walking from my hotel to my office. I walked past a parked truck, and there was a young woman walking there too. And the truck honked really loudly. And she shouted something not very nice and made an obscene hand gesture. And the truck honked again really loudly. And I was really glad that I was there, and more importantly, that the RCMP was there, because I thought, this is exactly the kind of thing like, imagine no one had been there. It was just this small young woman and this big truck and a person in it. And she was mad. And I just thought, you know, there are dozens and dozens of these things happening every day. And, you know, God forbid that one of them should actually flare into violence and physical harm. So
once again, not that it flared into violence, not that she witnessed an attack, but God forbid that it could potentially, maybe somehow, almost, right? All these qualifiers that she's placing in between her claim that it could lead to violence, which it didn't. It didn't.
No, buddy, I drive on the roads every single day. I get pissed off at drivers every single time I'm out on the road. You don't see me in fights. What do you mean? Oh, I saw two people had an interaction and it could have potentially gotten violent. Okay, well then any interaction could potentially get violent if this is the line you're drawing in the sand. It's way the fuck over there, man. I saw she goes, "Oh God forbid if nobody else had been there." What could have happened? What did you and the RCMP do between that girl and the trucker? Nothing. Because nothing fucking happened. And how did the trucker respond? By just honking again. Ooh, so much violence. Fuck.
Like, you know what I chalk this up to? Once again,
am I retarded? Like,
no. This is an unpopular point, and I understand why that is, but this is exactly why women should not be in politics. This is exactly why women should not be in politics, because what she's recounting is a classically female story. I was threatened by the possibility of violence, and so I felt that I was almost mentally raped or some shit like that. When literally, like, nothing went on. She just said this woman flipped off a trucker and called him some word, and he honked at her, and that was it, and they just kept walking. If that was a dude, he would have just been, okay, well, you dumb bitch, don't fucking, like, why are you antagonizing the truckers? Just keep it pushing. Go to your job. Go fucking do whatever it is the fuck that you were doing. Like, what are we discussing here? A man would not react like that to the same situation, but a woman would, which is exactly what this is. It's literally just her giving into her female instinct and being like, oh my God, the predation of violence, which I understand why that exists, because women can't defend themselves as well as men can. I understand why they feel more vulnerable. I get it. But it's not like the trucker was going to rape her. It's not like he was going to get out and, like, assault her or cause any physical harm to her. Oh, he honked. And that was violent enough.
Hanging out on the street corner as you're like...
Yeah.
I do love how her example of, like, this is her example of the
worst thing.
Powder keg.
The worst thing
about before. This is the worst thing she could have thought of to present at this hearing.
Yeah.
And this is what it was. It was nothing. It was an interaction between two people of two different opinions that literally didn't even come within 10 feet of each other.
Yep.
The guy didn't even get out of the truck.
Literally. Like, literally. Like,
wow.
Like, absolutely nothing happened, and she made the fucking biggest stink of it, which, with all due respect to my female listeners, this is what women do, okay? This is exactly what women do. And when you position them in places of power, when you position them in politics, this is exactly what they will do.
Hey, dude, I'm really glad Chrystia Freeland didn't overreact. I'm really glad.
I'm really glad she didn't overreact. I'm really glad. So glad.
Fucking hell.
So much gladness. My God. This is this video right here is testimony of Chrystia Freeland wanting to, which, once again, her fucking chicken scratch. Who the fuck?
This is an alien language, okay? Like, this is something straight out of Aliens.
You know what's funny? I just remembered when Donald Trump was first president in, like, 2016 or so, people started analyzing his handwriting. Like, we had I remember these psychologists, part of like actual, like, accredited psychologists in America, were coming out and saying this person should not be president because he shows tendencies of a psychopath or something like that, psychopath, sociopath, what have you, that he had some maladjusted tendencies that you could tell based on his handwriting and his behavior. Why hasn't anyone analyzed her fucking handwriting? Because dude, this is fucking deranged. How the fuck can you read any of this? This is crazy. Anyways, let's get to the clip.
And there you say that you need to designate the group as terrorists. So, but it's not your job, but you wanted to designate them as terrorists, right?
So that handwritten note in my notebook, I can...
Handwritten note in my notebook. She has to clarify that.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Why does she think she has a magical notebook? Who is she, Light Yagami? It's like, fuck off.
No. It's because it's well. This will get clear as we watch the video. So you know what? Let's just let it play through.
Assure you that was not a meeting with the director of CSIS, with whom I didn't have a meeting.
It says it's okay. It's with David Vignon from CSIS.
It doesn't say that. It says it's with a gentleman called Dave.
Which Dave?
That meeting, that is not an account of meeting with Dave Vigneault because I didn't have a meeting
which Dave is in
with
those notes,
the CSIS
ma'am?
director.
Which Dave is in those notes? What's Dave's last name?
I need to see my whole notebook that you're referring to, but I can tell you for certain. I can tell you for certain that I did not have a meeting during this time with the CSIS director.
Okay, so
notice that, like, unprompted, not prompted, she like immediately goes into this defense. I did not meet with the CSIS director where I had these notes. Let's play that again.
That handwritten note in my notebook, I can assure you that was not a meeting with the director of CSIS.
No, he doesn't even ask her that. He doesn't even ask her that. She just straight up says, "Hey, by the way, this meeting not with the guy that runs CSIS."
The terrorist group thing before, right? Yeah.
He doesn't ask her a question. He just, once again, let's play it through.
And there you say that you need to designate the group as terrorists. So
maybe he already tried to establish.
But it's not your job, but you wanted to designate them as terrorists, right?
So that handwritten note in my notebook, I can assure you that was not a meeting with the director of CSIS, with whom I didn't have a meeting.
It says,
even if it's
shit. Fuck, I see what you're saying. She just completely diverts that question.
Just
no longer
immediately
talking about terrorists, eh?
Like she doesn't even like that's not the important thing.
I fucking hate that too. Fuck.
That's not the important thing that she like clarifies. Like, oh, this is what I meant when I said terrorist. This is why I said that word. No. Immediately she goes into backpedaling. I did not talk to David from CSIS, even though that's literally the only name that could be linked to a conversation such as this. And then when asked, okay, which Dave are you talking about? What's his last name? She says, oh, I would have to see my entire collection of notes. I would have to see the entirety of my fucking chicken
Family
scratch.
line yeah.
This is an offense to chicken scratch.
Through the knuckle bones of a dragon. Like the fuck.
Dude, I work with doctors and they don't write this bad. Okay, they don't write this bad. This is I can't fucking read that. Like I thought my handwriting was bad. What the fuck is this shit?
That's really bad.
Anyways,
but
beyond
still,
that,
I can still read terrorist in there. So please answer the fucking question.
Yeah, she wants to designate. Like, let's not get away from the point. She wants to designate the people protesting at the Freedom Convoy. Which, once again, when you saw that media compilation earlier talking about Nazis and Stars of David with the bouncy castle, she wants to designate them as terrorists. The note, it says here in her barely fucking legible handwriting, you need to designate the group as a terrorist group. Seize the assets. That's literally what her notes say. Chrystia Freeland, as the Minister of Finance, is openly saying that the protesters at the Freedom Convoy need to be designated as a terrorist group. Now, who in all of government, who of all the people has the power to designate a group as the terrorist group? I would imagine, just off the top of my fucking head right now, there are very few people that could actually have that power to designate them as a terrorist group. One of those people may or may not be, just by happenstance, just by coincidence, be the same David that was the head of CSIS. He could be one of those people. I'm not sure what other David exists in our government at that time that has the power to designate a group of people as a terrorist group. More importantly, why? What threshold needs to be met for these people to be considered a terrorist group? What are we talking about here? What the fuck are we talking about here?
It's all over the map. It's
the fact that this lady isn't in prison right now is beyond me. The fact that like she isn't serving time for doing shit like this is beyond me right now. She's scot-free, working for fucking Zelensky, being the financial advisor to Ukraine right now, happy as can be. Jesus fucking Christ, Chrystia Freeland, my God. You would be hard pressed to find a more unstable woman, and I don't make that statement.
Schizophrenic episodes.
Dude, I was just gonna say, I'm literally looking up. I'm trying to find a compilation right now of her just weird
shaking her head and agreeing with everything in the background.
Bro, she's
like one of those background actors that like overdoes it.
She actually looks like she's fucking coked up half the time when she's like on the national stage, which people forget. But like legitimately, there like some people were raising concerns like, hey, is she okay? Like she is having some really, really, really weird moments, like just sniffling and like just the different facial expressions that she had, like genuinely fucking weird that somebody behaves like this. Like seems like she's having not a mental breakdown, but some kind of an issue or drug dependency that really should be closely examined, because it was just really weird the way that she would behave on the world stage.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I recently ran into that clip of what is it, Hitler at the Olympics, where he's like tweaking out on meth, where he's like rocking back and forth in his seat.
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, no, I can see that. I see a comparison to be made here.
She had to be doped up on something. There is absolutely no way. I mean, like, actually incredible. I'm trying to find a clip right now to see if I can get it. I mean, the closest one is the clip that we're going to play next, which is
yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to find anything specific to that. Well, what do you even prompt that with? Show me clips of Chrystia Freeland tweaking.
I mean, I am just gonna type that into Twitter and see what comes up. I mean, this is probably a decent one.
Back to the healthcare meeting next week. Did you present any specifics of what your government
Always brushing her hair too. I noticed that. Like she loves to do
is
that.
prepared to offer to the premiers? And can you just give us a sense, how close are you on the numbers? Do you think it's feasible to get to
Notice like her
Jesus
body.
Christ, why is she moving so much?
Yeah, she's just shaking.
$27 billion increase and a 5% increase thereafter? Can you give us a sense of whether this is at all possible for your
What
government?
the fuck? What the fuck, dude? Just play that with no audio. Look at that. What is that?
Like I said, man, she's a fucking alien.
That's fucking weird. Okay, anyways,
I found one of her head bombing.
You found one?
Yeah.
Interest rates.
opponents will argue that perhaps it's the wrong time to.
Oh yeah, let's play without no audio. What the fuck?
Oh my god. She can't stand still, man.
Look, if she has some like incurable disease or something, I feel bad for like laughing at her like this. So I genuinely don't know, but it doesn't look good for your politicians to be behaving like this on the world stage for as long as she did all those years. I mean, this is just weird, man. What the fuck is this? Yeah, anyways, let's move on.
Goes through every emotion within 8 seconds.
Like literally. In any case, here's another clip saying that Chrystia Freeland stated that it was not good, quote, not good for democracies to make policy at gunpoint, which, I mean, they didn't have guns at the Freedom Convoy. They found some guns at the, let's clarify this, at the bridge crossings, right? There were guns that people were put to trial for, and the RCMP and whoever else investigated it did not find any actual claims that there were legitimate potential acts of violence that were going to be enacted by those individuals. And yet here's Chrystia Freeland making this statement.
Okay, the last thing I want to take you to before we put this document down is that just last little paragraph there that just came up on the screen. You say, I am very resolute in ending this occupation of our democracy, but I will never support negotiating with those who held our democracy hostage. No good thing comes of that. Can you explain that comment? You will never sanction or never support negotiating with those who hold our democracy hostage.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think it's healthy for a democracy, for any democracy, for policy to be made, at gunpoint, if you will. And that really also devalues the views and the contributions of all Canadians who express their political views and their political preferences in different ways, for example, by voting. So, yeah.
Were you referring there to the vaccine mandates, to public health measures, or more generally?
Yeah, I think, again, I don't have a sort of photographic or a video memory of exactly how that conversation evolved. And in fact, I didn't remember saying this until I read it again, but I'm sure that's a faithful account. Having read this note, what I think I was referring to is a comment made earlier in the conversation suggesting that the solution to this was a change in policy on vaccines. That's what I think I was responding to.
Okay.
Okay, so this was the whole thing about changing democracy at gunpoint, which again was kind of what Trudeau was saying about not wanting to set a precedent for, the blockades leading to changes. But yeah, you can't make that difference between one protest and another, So one protest is fine because you're doing A, but you're asking for policy changes. But this protest isn't fine because of B, and you're asking for policy changes. And again, with no violence, but quote unquote political violence. Are you muted? I can't hear you.
My apologies. Yes, I was muted.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
What I was saying is you don't get to have the benefits of saying that we live in a free and open democracy and that people do have a voice in this country when you only listen to some protests and not the others.
Mhm.
Right. So, same
Exactly.
example as you said with Trudeau. You don't get to rely on the strength and the inherent functions of a democracy. You don't get to do that and say, "Oh, we're going to hear one voice, but we're not going to hear the other." That's not how that works. And though they may have tried to sell us on this message, anyone that look, you don't even have to listen to this whole fucking episode. Just look at the clips. Just look at these sources. Go watch them. Right, because this whole podcast could be condensed to you just watching all the clips that we source in the the sources list, and you for yourself will understand the exact same conclusion that we are coming to, which is that they are just outwardly not only lying but gaslighting. They're saying that some opinions are fine because they don't blockade Parliament, and others are not fine because they blockade Parliament.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So we want to be able to, the government is essentially saying, we're fine with listening to people so long as we don't get to be held accountable for our actions, which, whatever your opinion on the convoy, the damage that was done to the Canadian economy and to the US economy as a result of the bridge blockades is the least that the government deserved for the amount of lives that were snuffed out because of their unfair restrictions, the amount of lives that were wasted as a result of schools getting shut down, of businesses getting shut down, businesses that had existed for generations prior. I mean, who is going to pay for that cost? Because these people are going to get up and they're going to say, oh, well, COVID was an unprecedented time. We had to make all these snap decisions. We had to rely on our public health experts. Okay, great. But you didn't offer the best solutions. You didn't offer the perfect way out, and which, look, we're not expecting perfection, but even just on the basic standard of human decency, this government did not pass that sniff test. They really did not. And that's why the convoy happened, is because people were fucking fed up with that shit. They were done with that.
Thing is, you also just mentioned COVID was unprecedented. We had to rely on our health officials. Okay, we have to rely on the health officials, but then why is there no responsibility placed upon their shoulders at the end of the day? Right? Like that's a simple line of thought to follow. Okay, we have an emergency. Okay, we have people for these emergencies, but now these people have no responsibility when it comes to what they did or did not do, or what they recommended, or what they slandered, or what misinformation what information they deemed misinformation or disinformation. There's nothing. Like Dr. Tam, for all I know, is on a beach in Barbados. Like I have no idea what she's doing now.
Yeah, she's probably retired. And having a good time. She's not even Canadian. Born in Hong Kong. Not even Canadian. In any case,
we have a lot of non-Canadians in our very Canadian government.
You would think, right? You would think. But in any case, moving on to the next clip. So, who exactly is responsible for the freezing of the bank accounts? You know, Chrystia Freeland alluded that she had pressured certain people in the government or certain people in the financial institutions to do this. Let's hear it say in their own words.
It's a logical sequence. What I'm trying to find is who says we were the ones who seized the bank accounts or froze the bank accounts. You know, the banks say we were told to do it. The RCMP says we didn't tell anybody to do it. You say we weren't involved in this. But
we set a policy. Yeah, we set a policy. Yeah. And we are accountable for that policy.
And thank you. That is exactly what I wanted to make sure we got to before we finish with the panel.
Great. So the Deputy Minister of Finance, Michael Sabaya, takes responsibility for freezing the bank accounts. Finally, we finally got an answer. At least one answer from fucking somebody. And it's a deputy minister of finance who guaranteed takes his marching orders at the time from Chrystia Freeland. So she is ultimately responsible for this because the deputy minister would have been the one that, as he said in his own words, responsible for enacting this bank account freeze, which, once again, unprecedented. Never in Canadian history has the government frozen people's bank accounts for simply donating to a protest. Right? Could you imagine if in America that like the amount of people that donated to BLM, all the celebrities, all the local politicians, everybody, the federal politicians, fucking Kamala Harris famously donated to a campaign to free some of the people, either it was in LA or Seattle or wherever, to free these people, to pay their bond. Right? Could you imagine if that happened in America? Are you fucking kidding me? This has never happened ever, like ever, in a Western country like this. Ever.
No, because this would have to be extreme. There would have to be hard proof of some terrorist organization, like actually building up forces and having plans and so on, and then finding the people responsible for funding these individuals and shutting down those accounts. Like, that's the level it would have to go to, but clearly not. Since they literally just decided, well, we don't like what you're saying. We don't like that you're here going against our narratives. So we're going to freeze your assets.
Yeah, and
which
and
in
this,
and of itself,
yeah.
like you literally just outlined, is fucking wild.
Yeah, and this happened like after GoFundMe shut down. So people started donating to the Give Send Go campaign, and Give Send Go was located in the United States, and still people's bank accounts were getting shut down if they still donated to Give Send Go, which personally, I'll admit, I was looking to send some money to the Freedom Convoy. I was going to financially support them, even if it was just throwing them 20, 50, 100, however many dollars I could at the time.
Yep,
But that dissuaded me from it, because I thought, if my bank account is frozen in the middle of COVID and I can't work a job because my job isn't considered essential, then I am fucked completely, because now I don't have access to the one thing that allows me to live. And thankfully, you know, I was in a position where that wouldn't have left me like completely destitute and homeless, right? I still would have had a home to come home to, but it made me think twice. It made me reconsider donating to the convoy, which I so wanted to do. Because if I couldn't be there in person, then at least I could send some money financially so people could buy some food, water, whatever, you know, to help with the cause. But that dissuaded me personally, and how many other thousands of people in Canada did dissuade from donating to the convoy, which is insane. Because once again, the issue with the Freedom Convoy, it's not about agreeing with them regarding their opinions on vaccines, around lockdowns. None of that matters. The reason that the Freedom Convoy mattered is because this can happen to you too. If your cause is not aligned with the right wing, or what people call the alt-right of the convoy, and you know what some people, you know, as we saw in the media representations earlier, potentially tied to QAnon, Russia, what have you, fine. Even if you're not aligned with them in any way, shape, or form, if your cause, right, for example, is on the left and it goes against the government that's in charge, the Freedom Convoy freezing the bank accounts, right, the government freezing the bank accounts of these people sets a precedent, because now anybody that goes against the government in any significant way can have their finances completely locked. That's the problem. That's the problem. So all these people being like, oh, the Freedom Convoy, those fucking truckers, those fucking idiots, retard. It can happen to you too. Like, you think that that they can't touch you? You think that you're impervious from the government doing this to you? Fuck right off. Fuck right off. I have a bridge to sell you.
The moment you find yourself on the other side, yeah.
If you believe then I have a bridge to sell you.
Yeah. The other thing is that we've talked multiple times about how, you know, it's very important to vote with your dollar, right? And now all of a sudden, you have this major hesitancy to spend your own money on an event or an organization or an item or whatever that you want or believe in strictly because you're scared of the consequences, that's what? That's communist level bullshit? Like that's dictator level bullshit?
That's fascist. That's literally that's as fascist as it gets.
I mean,
The government telling you
I
what you can and can't
wanted to
spend
go
money on.
fascist, but the ironic thing is that they're the ones pointing at everybody else and calling them fascists, but their habits are right there.
Yeah, it's just like that. If you think that this can't touch you, if you think that because you're quote unquote on the right side of history that you agree with the government as it exists today, they won't do this to you. Just wait until an administration gets in that is of the opposite political leaning that you are. Just you wait. They will do the exact same fucking thing. Like this was the major concern. The issue was the main issue with the Freedom Convoy, as like the overarching message that we're trying to send here with the show. It's not that, oh, we are butthurt because they went against us, because they didn't agree with us on vaccine mandates or any of this other shit, right? None of that matters. The problem is that now, the next administration that gets in, if they decide to use the exact same laws to squash protests, they have precedent. They have a historical basis for doing the exact same thing, except to the other side. That's the fucking problem. That's the problem. So yeah, fine. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts. Your short-lived victory while it lasts. When the shoe's on the other foot, you're not going to be fucking laughing. You're not. And I'm not going to be laughing either, because I don't want to see that for anybody of any political level. If that happened at the BLM protests, I would have been just as outspoken, if not more. I would have been just as disagreeable, if not more. Because nobody in Canada deserves to have this done to them. Unless you're literally a terrorist entity that seeks to bomb the capital. That is literally the only example, the only instance in which this is feasible, in which this is socially acceptable. Otherwise, fuck off.
And that's exactly why we're paying so much attention to their appeal processes. Right? Like this is the second time, third time they're appealing this? I can't remember.
This is the second. So the government is appealing the Supreme Court's decision to say that the Freedom Convoys, or rather the Emergencies Act, was an unlawful use of the laws in Canada against the Freedom Convoy. This is the second time that the government is disputing it now.
Yeah, okay, the second time. So this is why we're paying so much attention to these appeals, because the Supreme Court has actually ruled, I don't want to say in quote unquote our favor, being like the convoy side, but ours as in the citizens of Canada, right? The little guy. So the Supreme Court has realized, no, what you did was unlawful. Seizing people's bank accounts or freezing people's bank accounts is unlawful. And you and I are both sitting here going, yes, absolutely. I agree. I don't want to see this happen to anyone ever again. And the government of Canada is doing what? They're appealing that decision. They're sitting here being
on our
like,
tax dollars.
No.
On our tax dollars.
Set the precedent. Put the flag up. And we're over here being like, no, fuck off. I don't want to see this happen to anybody. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is that like if you think that they can't touch you, if you think that the government can't do this to your movement, if you think that they can't go against you, whether you're for Israel or Palestine or what have you, if you think that they can't go after your cause, they literally just proved it with the convoy. That if you cause enough of a stink, if you create enough of an issue for them, they will roll the tanks in on you or do everything short of that to get rid of you. This is what our government is capable of. This is the principal issue. It's not whether you agree with us on vax mandates. It's not whether or not you agree with us on lockdowns. It's not whether or not you agree with us on any of these things. It's the fact that the liberties and the freedoms of the people were squashed in a way that has never, ever, ever been seen before in modern Canadian history. Ever. This is a unique precedent. And the fact that people don't talk about it more is nothing short of a crime. Because everyone's moved on from the convoy. Nobody fucking gives a shit. Everybody labels them as fucking alt-right agitators. You're missing the point. You're missing the point, because the point is this affects every single one of us. Because when it comes to fucking push to shove, okay, the government will force their will upon you. This is the lesson that we are learning from the convoy. There's nothing else. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Nothing
100%.
else.
We're over here waving the red flags for everybody. Right? I don't care if you agree with my political ideologies or not. We're saying these powers should not be allowed to exist and not be allowed to be used in such a manner all fucking willy-nilly. Like we've already said, it's the most peaceful protest probably in the world, if not at minimum in Canada.
Yeah. It could have been way worse.
We can't find a single clip of a violent act that occurred. Christian Freeland's out here being like, I watched two people argue. And that's
You're telling me a trucker can't start a fire in an apartment building? You're telling me a man that deals with diesel and fuel for his fucking livelihood can't start a fire in an apartment building? Really? Is that what we're talking about?
And then Shocker already proved to be non-associated with them.
Yeah. In any case, let's move on here because we're a little bit short for time. But let's play this little clip here.
The date, if I'm following this correctly, is February 2nd, so the Wednesday of the first week of the convoy's presence in Ottawa. And again, if I'm following the bubbles correctly,
hey, guess whose name comes up here? You see that? You see that little name at the end there?
Yeah, that's cool.
Our Prime Minister, Mr. Carney. Wow.
And not stupid people.
What's he doing there? He famously wrote an op-ed against the convoy during the height of the convoy.
Yeah.
He said that they were like insurrectionists and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah, he did. In any case, this exchange here, it was between Marco Mendocino and this gentleman here that's testifying, who is Justice Minister David Lametti and Public Safety Minister Marco Mendocino, who suggested that they should look for tanks, jokingly. So during this public order emergency where we need to enact the Wartime Measures Act that has never been enacted against the people before, they're joking about rolling in tanks against the people. This is how serious it is. Great.
The Canadian Armed Forces, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you need to get the police to move and the CAF if necessary. Too many people are being seriously adversely impacted by what is an occupation. I am getting out as soon as I can. People are looking to you for leadership and not stupid people.
He talks about it like he's going to be a refugee because of the convoy. The fuck are you talking about?
They're talking about rolling in tanks.
Being adversely affected. What does that mean? Phantom honking? Shit, man. We're talking about bigger problems than phantom honking.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, but they're joking about tanks. So once again, you can't say that this is the most severe and serious thing that's happened to Ottawa in recent history, and then also joke about rolling in tanks.
Next time, get ready, Grandma, because those tracks are coming right over you.
Well, also, like, how do you as a public representative not think that in this moment that, hey, there is actually a quite real possibility that I will be forced to testify in the coming months, if not coming years, about the things that I've said, the text messages that I sent, which should be a matter of public record? How are you not, like, thinking in your head that this might be an inconvenient thing to say if this ever comes out? Because, with all due respect, these people live because we allow them to. And I don't mean that because we threaten them with violence. I mean that because we subsidize their livelihoods with our tax dollars. The reason that they have a job in the first place is because we afford them the privilege, right? The privilege to represent us in government. And they think that it's funny to joke about rolling in tanks against their own people, which, fine. Okay.
Well,
you want to play that game.
I thought the same thing about Christian Freeland when we were watching her her talk about her notes in her notebook with her chicken scratch fucking handwriting. I won't even call it chicken scratch because that's insulting to chickens.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that. It's like, how did you put pen to paper saying we need to designate them as terrorists?
No.
Out of your mind?
No, she was directing him.
Yeah, asking somebody else. Yes.
You need to designate them as terrorists.
But how do you write out the word terrorist and not have the thought in the back of your mind being like, I should probably burn this? Like,
yeah,
insane. That's yeah.
Yeah, and those are just the notes that we got to see. Those are just the notes that we actually got to see because I didn't pull this link up earlier, but Tamara Litch,
right. Maybe they were smart enough to burn some of them. Maybe there's much more horrific shit that she's been writing down.
Well, no, Tamara Litch, she got the PDF of the notes because these documents were available publicly, and I think they still are if you can find a link. But as you'll notice, there's plenty of these. They're just straight up redacted completely, which if the terrorist thing is what we got to see, I wonder what it is that was censored from us. I can only wonder. But in any case, let's move on to the finale of these legal fees or these legal issues. The finale being that all of these hours that have been spent deliberating, looking over case files, all those endless hours burning the midnight oil, cost the taxpayers a cool $20 million of billable hours by the Department of Justice. According to Blacklocks, it says here, lawyers of the Department of Justice charged more than $21 million in billable hours on civil litigation targeting the Freedom Convoy, records show. Their charge to taxpayers was more than double the compensation paid to Ottawa businesses that claimed lost income as a result of the 2022 protest. Quote, the services targeted here are litigation services provided in these cases by the Department of Justice, Cabinet wrote in an inquiry of ministry tabled in the Commons. Billable hours totaled $21,031,000. The figures were tabled at the request of conservative, right, because liberals aren't going to bring this up, conservative MP Jeremy Patzer, who asked, quote, with regard to costs associated with legal proceedings and investigations resulting from the Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa and the subsequent declaration of a public order of emergency, what are the total legal costs incurred to date? $21 million, which did not include the costs of prosecuting some 230 protesters charged for participating in the Freedom Convoy, typically for mischief. Once again, quote, there was no serious violence in Ottawa. The RCMP wrote in an internal February 21, 2022 email. The figure also excluded the $17 million cost of a public order emergency commission that investigated Cabinet's use of emergency powers against protesters. So that whole commission that we saw, that all those clips that we just played, cost $17 million.
Damn, we're in the wrong line of work.
We are.
We could just, take a couple months, investigate something the government did, and there you go. Here's $15 million, $17 million, $20 million, whatever.
And it says here that the Department of Public Safety earlier put its costs at $73 million, typically overtime for RCMP. Mounties at the time had assigned up to 250 constables to patrol protests on Parliament Hill. There cannot be a better example, or rather better justification, for the Prime Minister to have simply come off of his fucking high horse to sit down with the protesters and to speak with them than the cost that was incurred by taxpayers. You have $73 million of just covering shifts and the manpower and all the materials needed to deal with the protests. You have $21 million for the legal fees.
Hundreds of millions of dollars on this fucking thing.
Well, 73, 21, that's almost 100, plus the, the 17 million. So roughly just like, let's say 115 or so million dollars.
Million that was given to businesses.
Yeah.
That isn't mentioned in this article, but was mentioned in the other one.
So we'll say like
how many
almost
other
140.
fucking expenses?
Almost $150 million spending just deliberating the convoy. All of that could have been avoided, or at least a good chunk of it could have been avoided if they had just cared to sit down and speak with the people.
And not play this game of us versus them.
Yeah. All of that could have been avoided. All of it. All of it. None of it needed to happen. None of it needed to happen. And so, what are the lasting effects of the Freedom Convoy? Well, for a period of time, the street in front of Parliament Hill was closed. It has now obviously since been reopened, but for a time period after that, I believe about a year or so after, they closed the street, which was very weird to see. No traffic on Wellington whatsoever. I remember visiting with you at the time there, just very eerie.
They had huge concrete blockades on either end.
Yeah, absolutely massive barriers set up just to make sure that nobody was going to rekindle any sort of freedom convoy there. Bicycles accepted, obviously, as is tradition in Ottawa. But yeah, they just closed down the streets completely, made them unusable, which I don't understand why. They have tow trucks at their disposal.
They wanted to turn them into
a lesson.
No. Like closing Wellington, they wanted to turn it to a pedestrian-only zone like Spark Street.
Oh, I see.
Spark Street's just foot traffic, right? They wanted to do the same thing on Wellington to prevent anything like this ever happening again. And as soon as I heard that, it makes me think about, oh, so you're building a moat around the castle. That's what you're doing. You don't like the kids on your front lawn, so you're building a moat.
But it's too much of an important road.
Right. No, it's a main vein through Ottawa. There's no way.
Yeah, I've caught a couple of buses, going home from university and whatnot in front of Parliament before. Like it's a very fairly common street. But just to kind of speed run here because we are short for time. Regarding the Supreme Court and the appeals that our current government is still trying to press regarding the Freedom Convoy, the head of the Supreme Court is straight up, like, on record saying that he thinks the protesters were, what is it here? Quote, "What we saw recently on Wellington Street is a small beginning of anarchy, where certain people decided to take other citizens hostage, to take the law into their own hands, not to respect the mechanism. That I find it worrying." He described the convoy as including people of, quote, "good faith, but also, quote, remote-controlled individuals seeking to short-circuit the political system," saying this, quote, "does not inspire good feelings in me. I find it worrying." The occupation was fueled by a, quote, "poor understanding" and a, quote, "certain ignorance of the basics of the Canadian rule of law." It, quote, "forced blows against the state, justice, and democratic institutions like the one delivered by the protesters should be denounced with force by all figures of power in the country."
Wow.
This is the Supreme Court of Canada, Chief Justice, the country's top judge. This is his opinion, which, first of all, why the fuck are you giving your opinion on something like this in public? Why are you even saying this? This is beyond the pale. Your job is to rule impartially based on the letter of the law. Why are you giving color-coded fucking color commentary?
Yeah. No, but again, we've been sitting here for hours talking about the friggin' convoy. We've been talking for the convoy over weeks now on how it was non-violent and so on and so forth, and they want to slander it and blah, 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 blah. And the best example Christian Freeland could give was a mild argument in the streets. And now you're over here saying, like, we were vigilantes. We wanted to take the law into our own hands. We were holding people hostage, even though even Zexi Lee there said she never felt, restricted from going outside. What are we talking about?
Well, because
You have
contextually,
nothing to stand on. It's absolute garbage.
yeah, because contextually, like we're outside of the moment now. We're years beyond when it actually happened. So we have the good graces of being able to look on this through hindsight.
Well,
But at the time,
I would argue that even if you went down there during the moment, you would know this is all horseshit. But yes, continue.
oh yeah, if you're a reasonable individual, yes, absolutely. But at the time, right, people were whipped up with the COVID frenzy. They wanted the pandemic to end. They had quote unquote, followed the rules. They'd been a good boy, gotten all the vaccinations and done everything they could. And here was this trucker convoy full of no gooders, people that were just seeking to
shouldn't be
destroy,
tolerated.
that shouldn't be tolerated. They were a minority with unacceptable views. Right? As we saw in the media compilation that we played at the beginning of this whole episode, right? Is it any wonder that Canadians, especially boomers who fucking inhale the state-sponsored media like it's their fucking microwave dinner, is it any surprise that those people fell to this spell making, to this this act of hypnotism that the government tried to play on them? Oh my God! All these Nazis. These did I play that clip of the Hong Kong Heil Hitler? Did I play that clip?
Yes, you did, about how
Yeah.
honk honk is like a euphemism for Heil Hitler or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
If
believe
you-
she just.
yeah.
She says that with her fucking chest too,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is funny to me. Like she believes it.
Yeah, so to answer your question is like how can any reasonable person look back on the convoy and look, even though once again you admitted, and I admit too, we are biased in this. We have a horse in the race. We identified with the people that protested in the convoy, and we supported them. Yes, 100%. But even a decently rational person, how can you listen to something like this and actually take them seriously?
How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler, do we need to see by these protesters on social media?
I mean, what more do you need to say? Like, really, you're on the side of these people. You're defending them.
You want to talk about mental gymnastics? At least with Trudeau, I can kind of follow along with what he's doing with the floor routine. Okay, over here, I don't know what this bitch is doing, but she's jumping sports because that shit's wild. Honk honk, Heil Hitler. Fuck off.
That's a leap of logic. Even I can't. I don't know.
Far outside the scope. Like,
I mean, like whoever gave her notes for the day, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. But look, to sum it
I
up,
don't know how you don't feel embarrassed saying that. Anyway.
It's beyond me. But to close off the show, right? All this frustration, everything that we're venting, once again, the reason that this is important, this story of the convoy is important, it's not because we were against the COVID mandates and we wanted them to end. The reason that it's important is because this is a lesson that needs to be learned by every generation going forward. That when Canadians get together in the dead of winter, in the worst conditions possible to host a protest outside, in one of the worst cities, at least like giant metropolitan hubs, in the worst cities to experience this winter in minus 30-degree weather, right? When people gather to protest the government or to protest the mandates and the enforcement that the government pushes onto them, there should be an attempt, or at least a some kind of gesture of goodwill that should be extended to the people that are doing this, because this is not an AstroTurf operation. They're not bought out by some influence peddler. They're not influenced by Russia, no matter how much the CBC tries to decry them. These are just genuinely decent Canadians that are just trying to get by. You had people of all races, as you have attested to, and if we've shown footage from your own personal accounts on this show before. You had natives, you had minorities, visible minorities, you had people of all different sorts of age groups coming together in unity of a single message that these government mandates need to end and that they need to be stopped. And what did the government do to them? They demonized them. They used the media to either excuse the government's behavior or to further push their message that these people were violent. Even though, once again, as we've stated before on the show, was no evidence of any legitimate claims of violence against anybody in the city of Ottawa during the entirety of the protest.
Yeah.
Not only that, there was actually a decrease in the amount of violent incidents that happened in Ottawa as a result of the presence of the protesters. We've
but
shown
an
footage.
increase in mischief cases, funny enough.
An increase in mischief cases. We've shown evidence of people swimming in their inflatable pools. We've shown evidence of people hugging and crying each other. Hugging each other and crying. We've shown evidence of people just opening their hearts to one another, right? Embracing what it means to be Canadian, to unify around a message of solidarity and standing up against the government. And what did the government do? They not only squashed them, they froze their bank accounts. They demonized these people. They called them Nazis. They called their views unacceptable. They made them out to be social pariahs. And then when they were done labeling them with all of that, they tried to put them in prison for it. And they had the longest mischief trials in all of Canadian history to justify what they did. And when the people tried to hold them accountable in the public in the public square, when they had that trial where we were just showing all the clips about, you notice all the backpedaling. You notice all the redacted documents that they were showing. Did you notice how they were trying to justify their claims? How they didn't call them any names? Justin Trudeau, I didn't call anybody any names? What does that tell you? What does that tell you? What that tells me personally, and I'll give you the floor in a second. What that tells me is that if your movement is true, if you are aligned with ideals of freedom and sovereignty for the individual and for the community, and for people that just want to be left the fuck alone, to just live a decent life, to look out for themselves, their family, and their communities, when you protest against the government and you are aligned with those principles, they will do everything to squash you. And you cannot back down. You cannot. Because the moment that you do, they win. And when they win, they set the precedent for the next administration. And the next administration, there is no guarantee that they will be any better than the ones that came before them. If anything, if history has taught us anything, they're actually going to be even worse. They're actually going to be even worse, and they're going to go even harder on you. So if your takeaway from our shows, from this little trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever the word is, for these episodes that you've seen regarding the convoy, just look at the video footage of the convoy itself. Don't listen to any of the arguments here. Don't look at the clips. Just go on YouTube and type in Freedom Convoy walkthrough and see for yourself what it was like to be in the convoy at the time. And you tell me if those people were half as hateful as the government made out to be. If those people deserve to have their bank accounts frozen, and if those people deserve to be as villainized as they were in the media. And that's all I want to say on that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I get what you said before about, us having our biases and so on, but you also made a good point earlier in saying, just reduce this podcast down to its clips and tweets and video footage and whatever else. And it's very hard to see an issue with the arguments that we're making and while at the same time having a sense of humanity. I mean, again, Tamara came out and said, look, grandfathers and grandmothers are dying on their iPads. Young people are committing suicide because they're completely isolated and alone. We've talked multiple times over a bunch of other issues that we were thinking we're going to be a problem, the education system, the future of vaccine mandates, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't stop and look at what the convoy tried to do and not say it wasn't looking out for its fellow man. You know, that's kind of what the whole thing boiled down to. And in the end, it wasn't exactly the result I was hoping for. I was hoping to see more change, but ultimately that was the moment where a lot of the restrictions came down. You know, and you've made that point before. It's we made the presence, we showed up, and despite the slander, despite being misrepresented, despite being told, "Oh, we vandalized the Terry Fox statue," what did we do? We cleaned it up. You know. Oh, we're not allowed to honk anymore. Okay, no more honking. You know, we talked about how there's no clips of violence. I'm actually shocked because I'm a bit of a misanthropist, but I'm actually shocked that there was no big acts of violence like that.
With the amount of people there, with the amount of interactions happening on a daily basis.
Yeah, with just a numbers game, you'd think it'd have to happen at least once. Somebody loses their cool. Somebody has one too many drinks because there was alcohol down there.
Yeah.
You know, somebody finally had enough. Somebody's diesel ran out and they slept cold last night and now they're pissed off. Anything to spark some violent action, but there was nothing. Everybody was cordial. And to demonize something like that and to use it as an excuse to later on use weapons like freezing people's bank accounts is deplorable. And like you said, we need to stand against it. That it cannot be allowed. You know, give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Like you said, the next administration, God knows what happens next. And I'm not saying, as like a defeatist way of being like, it's always worse tomorrow. Tomorrow is always, more evil than today. Whoever shows up tomorrow has worse intentions than the guy yesterday. No, it's do not give these people the tools, and they will never think about using them. This is the first time the Emergencies Act has been used since it replaced the War Measures Act in '88. And that can't be allowed to stand. Those are kind of my final thoughts on that.
No, 100%. 100%. And as a final word, like, once again, if you remain unconvinced, if you think that the government won't do this to you just because you're not on the side of the convoy, if you think that you have all the right opinions and you agree with the current administration and they would never do this to you, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. The Trudeau government has set the precedent.
Yeah.
The Trudeau government has set the precedent, and now future administrations will have to adjust to that. And I hope they see it as the mistake for what it is. And I hope that the people who were responsible for causing this get what they deserve. And I don't mean that as a threat of violence. I just mean that in the greater scheme of things, that there is only so much that you can do to subjugate your people to such, awful treatment. Not just awful, but unprecedented treatment before they rebel. Because, final point before we end off, the energy that died with the convoy, or that quote-unquote died with the convoy, that went away with the convoy, that was swept under the rug, it exists. Right? The people that got fucked over, that had their licenses revoked, that had their businesses fucked over, that saw their loved ones die through an iPad, okay, they hold that resentment. And if that is not addressed in due time, if there is an outlet that is not given to these people in due time, that energy and that resentment is only going to build up, and it is only going to cause potentially, right? And once again, I'm not advocating for anything. I'm just saying, if that energy is not given a funnel or an outlet through which that it needs to be guided through, it's going to be sent towards something that, God forbid, we see something even worse in the convoy, which we very well could in the future. So things like this, it's not just a blip on the radar. This is not just some one-off event that's going to go off and never, ever, ever be connected to anything else in Canadian history. The resentment still exists, and the people still feel the things that they feel because they were royally fucked over by the government, convoy or otherwise. And that's why it's important to remember this, because this event was truly unprecedented in its nature in Canadian history, and it is still yet to be resolved. Once again, the government is still appealing the Supreme Court's decision. So we have yet to see the final word on the Freedom Convoy. And so with that, we'll end it off. We may revisit this next year, depending on what happens with the Supreme Court decision. I'd like to ideally turn this into a yearly thing where we revisit the convoy, because I really think it should be a nationally recognized, maybe not a holiday, but at least a day of remembrance for everything that the government did to the people and for everything that they defended themselves against. So maybe in a year's time.
A historical event, yeah.
Exactly. I think it's a consequential enough event that should be remembered at least once a year. So I think in a year's time we'll be revisiting this topic, and hopefully we'll be covering some more positive stories regarding the convoy, but only time will tell. But in any case, we'll sign off here. Thank you to everyone that has made it this far. And once again, if you want to support the show, don't feel obligated, but you can always send us crypto. Otherwise, just like, comment, subscribe. That's more than enough for us. Go check out Mr. Fireside Talks on his socials there. We'll link it all in the description. Thank you again for joining me on this episode today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, always great. I just wish I didn't leave here feeling more confused about how these people think.
Well, look, you know what? We'll leave with this one positive thing. The convoy did show to the people, maybe not the government, but it did at least show to the people that that kind of change is possible. Very rare, maybe once in a lifetime rare, but it is certainly possible to affect that change. Because following the convoy, we did have the COVID restrictions lifted. We did have some of the mandates lifted. And they did play an instrumental role in allowing for that to happen. So even though the government may never admit to it, even though these people may never cop out to it, that did in fact happen just chronologically. So the convoy did play a role in that. And whatever people say, you can affect change. That is the lesson that I come away with from the convoy, regardless of how they were labeled. I mean, look, if their propaganda and their way of life was so good and so effective, they wouldn't have to have tried so fucking hard to make sure that the convoy was demonized as it was.
Yeah.
Right? They had him scared. They had him almost running for the hills with like, I mean, they had to enact a Wartime Measures Act just to deal with the people. If that doesn't tell you everything about the way the government functions, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, and that's kind of one of the final points that I'll probably make on it, is that, you mentioned before people's level of resentment and like creating that purge valve, essentially a way of like easing that pressure, right? So it doesn't sit and fester. And it's not like we're asking for something as ambiguous or androgynous as like something like justice, right? It's nothing that gray. It's simply responsibility, which is something we touched on earlier, right? About our health ministers and so on. Oh, we had to rely on our health ministers. Okay, but there's no responsibility for what they said. There's no responsibility for what they did, or the ideas they implanted in society. Our finance minister faces no responsibilities for wanting the convoy to be deemed terrorists, even though that's not her job. Just simply be held accountable, I think, would be one of the best ways to go about it.
Yeah, the bar was really low.
I know, but I say it's not asking much, while at the same time talking about the government, it's asking a lot.
Yeah, for them, based on their standards, is actually asking for a lot. But for us, it's literally like we just want to like talk. We just want to like you to sit down and have a conversation with us. But I guess we're too extremist for that. So, anyways, without further ado, thank you for everyone for tuning in. All the links in the episode will be posted below, sources and all that. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next episode, which should be this coming Friday. So take care.